Greetings and welcome to Office Hours with Dr. G. I'm your host, Dr. G, and I am so glad that you could keep our appointment. Now, of course, tonight's guest is no stranger to anyone on this channel. And if you don't know him, then I don't know where you've been over the last several months or years or so forth. But he is a returning guest, Brother Rod Hayes, in this revealing interview concerning the story behind his relentless drive to liberate the hearts, minds, and birthrights of our people.
That's me.
We're calling it the battle the world didn't see. And we're going to explore the mental, spiritual, and sometimes physical battles waged, fought, and ultimately won to bring us the one known as Rod Hayes, or aka Uncle Rod, to the forefront. And actually in the crosshairs of controversy. I don't even know how he does what he does, because I think I would have lost my mind up in here by now if I had to go through what he goes through and he does. But love him or hate him, believe it or not,
that's me.
Rod Hayes is a consistent force to be reckoned with and a bona fide champion of the sport in these uncertain times. I want to present to some and introduce to others, none other than our brother Rod Hayes. Welcome back. How you doing? Wait a minute, I gotta unmute it. How you doing, Brother Rod? How you doing, Brother Rod Hayes? Okay, wait a minute. It's me. Now we can hear you.
Yeah. Thank you for having me back on here.
Yes, it's we be in sync. When Big Mama speaks, things work out and things happen, and we're able to actually connect. First, I think in the spiritual realm, and recognize, what, it's time. You've been on the show. This is your third time here on the network, and of course, every time you're here, there's you got your opponents and your proponents. We got, like I said, those that love you, those that hate you, those that understand you, those that are confused by the things that you say. However, I recognize, and a lot of others recognize, your mission and purpose. And so tonight, what we want to do is do something a little different, because folks are used to you, telling us what Big Mama is saying, like right now, or what's happening on the land, what to look at, what has ended, and what contracts are over. But everyone has a beginning, and some folks think, well, he just came out of nowhere, or what gives him the right or authority, and he says I too much. We talked about that. So tonight, I want you to just, whatever, in the realm of spirit of truth and whatever you can release about Rod Hayes, because sometimes the fact that we don't understand or understand or understand where a person has come from to get them to the place, what qualifies them to do and stand on the, on the square or the soapbox or whatever the position one takes, until you walk the mile in someone else's shoes, you really don't have a real understanding or understanding of what it took to get them to where they are. So tonight, let's delve into we're talking about, we talked a little bit about your struggles, because and what, even to the point of what your family thought. So wherever you want to start, so I can shut up, because they know Dr. talk. I'll interject when I have to.
Okay. So one of the things you brought up is proponents and opponents, the ones who understand the message and know what I'm doing, and those who are confused by it and is in opposition. You need both sides, right? And we not operating from man's law right now. We operating from the position of what's called universal law, which is the highest law we can ascertain in the 3D world. Right? So
Mm-hmm.
when we talk about contract law, we're talking about the laws of men, that which is codified and recorded in books, being pushed by barristers in order to enforce the jurisdiction of the royal government onto the people. Right? At some point, we have to figure out how to get from under the oppressive yoke of the corporation. The corporation is a straw man. It's a legal fiction. So it has no compassion for the people. Right? Now, early on, I knew something was wrong when I was little, when I as a child. But I didn't know how to tell people what I seen, but I knew that I had some kind of psychic abilities where I could foretell the future. Like it was very common as an adolescent that I would hear a voice give me a number in my head, and I go get a number to my mama when we be hungry on our knuckles, and she'd hit the number and go grocery shopping. Right? That talent or that skill was cut off by Big Mama from the adults exploiting the child. The innocence of the child has to be protected by the adults that's harvesting that skill. So they would make promises that I'm going to do this if I hit the number, if you give me the number, and then I give them the number and they never follow through. And that's repugnant to the laws of nature and universal law. So the only way that Big Mama can stop the exploitation is she has to turn off that faculty. So now I couldn't give you a good number if I wanted to. Right? Because the exploitation as a child for the number, which was enriching people, it was getting them out of poverty conditions, was exploited by the adults, writing the child off as being insignificant when the children are the futures of our nations. So under the matriarchal structure, so you remember Ty saying that he knew when I was talking about raising the matriarchy what I was on. This is what he's talking about. Under the matriarchal structure, the men and patriarchy believe it means do the same thing as patriarchy with women in charge. That's not what it means. What it means is when we raise children, we raise the children to be different from the parent in a better way. All of the matriarchal mothers agree that if we raise children correctly, we have competent and functional adults. But when the society is intervening in the rearing of the child in order to exploit them for the workforce and for their militaries to fight their wars, the works of the mothers become 100 times harder and it becomes 10 times less effective. Right? So she's doing 100 times the work for 1/10 of the benefit that if the society would honor the position of the mother in rearing the child properly according to the universal law. We don't care about man's law. Man's law is irrelevant to us. Universal law, Big Mama's rules, is universal law. And she speaks to all of us, but all of us can't hear her. Right? Some of us been listening to it for so many past lives, it's second nature. Right? And you can see the energy move from godmother to godmother as they give you instructions on your life path if you know what you're looking for. I knew that at an early age what I was looking for, but I couldn't understand why I was searching for it. And every time I'd be looking for an answer, my mama used to always say the same thing. Don't try to figure it out. Just keep asking the Lord for wisdom. If you get the wisdom, you can solve the problems. But if you don't pursue the wisdom, you will be submerged in the problem. The problem will overtake you. Right? So we follow the universal law, the path of least resistance. And the corporation follows man's law and the law of the jungle. I'm gonna make you do what I want you to do, and then I'm gonna contract you to it to hold you in my favor. That's slavery. And as long as we not cognizant of what does it mean to have to file an application for a job, right? When you look at what an application really is, it's a negotiable instrument between the person that's willing to give their energy up to the person who knows how to benefit from the energy, and the person who's giving their energy up is negotiating the rate of production of energy that they can give to the corporate jurisdiction that they are signing the application with. So it's basically an exchange of economics or currency for labor expended, right? It's a basic math problem. Now, the laborer is unaware of the calculating instrument of the labor. So he don't really know his true worth. He don't know that the corporations measure the jobs by physical exertion and calories burned per hour, the same way as they would say this is how many miles to the gallon that this car can get. So they know how much output for the type of job that you're applying for that you worth. And you know they're going to give you about 1% of the value of that to them, right? When they should be giving you a functional wage. They created a system called inflation that can constantly steal from you by changing the rate by which your energy can be transferred and used to your benefit. It has nothing to do with social economics because you can have an economy with no inflation. Inflation is based off a debt concept of banking called fractional reserve banking, where you start using the debt as the collateral for the currency, which is a double debt, right? When you double down on the debt, it's twice as hard to get from under it. You know, it's like you got a house note that balloons and becomes double what it was. It becomes twice as hard to pay it as it was before, right? It's all in fractional reserve banking and how they put the money system together to always take your energy and never give you the value of the energy they took. We are under the impression that we just trying to make a living in this life. We don't want the struggle that comes with making a living being absorbed by inflation. So now what we was able to take care of a family on $5 an hour in the 60s, you can't take care of a family on $50 an hour in 2022. The price of gas alone is enough to suck your bank account dry, right? So in the whole process now, we trying to figure out how to get the people properly treated in order for Earth to advance to a golden age. This is the whole motivation, because in the golden age, this is the sun cycle coming in on the 24,000 year galactic clock, reference Charles Mosley Bay Clock of Destiny. When the galactic clock switches over from the silver lunar cycle to the golden moon cycle, we're going to go from temperatures increasing by up to 20 degrees around the world, right? Because now the things that's in secret has to be smoked out, so to speak. You know how they used to catch a rabbit in a hole and then they smoke one end, make it run out the other one? So right now, the sun cycle got the humans in the process of smoking out the devils that was holding us under those debt systems. And these systems, in turn, was oppressing the people so subtly until the people no longer knew they were being oppressed, misused, abused, and exploited. We heard about the 800,000 children a year go missing in the United States alone, right?
Mm.
That's almost 1 million children go missing every year, but we don't know about the cases. We might know about in the forefront of the media. They might showcase 100 cases throughout the year at the most across the land, and that's all locally. So we're not really getting the full impact of the tyranny taking place with the human trafficking and child exploitation. So we had to figure out how to reapply universal law, and that's not easy as it sounds, because you have to go through the dark night of the soul. That's the misery, right?
So
That's like,
with you though, as a young star, a child, had feelings. Would you call these feelings maybe remembrances coming back from an earlier cycle here, or just knowing what you're, or remembering the assignment that you came here to fulfill at a very young age, that you knew that you came to do what you're doing now?
well, it came a point where I ignored the spiritual message because I'm a child, and they were overwhelming for me as a child. When I got to be a teenager, I got so good at blocking the messages out that they didn't bother me like they used to at earlier ages. And when I was blocking the messages out, it was pushing me more into what we term today street life. Because the lifestyles in the hood, in the inner cities, is a very, very excellent distraction from hearing the spirit talk to you. But once you get heavy enough in the streets, you're going to lean back to spirit to guide you out of that condition. And you'll start opening back up to spirit again. That's why a lot of preachers is ex-pimps, prostitutes, and drug dealers, because spirit was able to guide them out of that destructive lifestyle and point them in a direction where they can be functional in this dysfunctional society. Most of us not even aware that the society is dysfunctional, right?
Right.
So those things were overwhelming to me as a child. I had some experience as a child that I didn't understand them, but I didn't have no fear, and they were so
Give us an
perplexing to me.
example. Could you give us an example of maybe one, or of maybe something we would look at as spiritual or
Yeah, so
paranormal?
there was
Paranormal.
there was an instance in elementary school where we was playing like dodgeball or something, and the ball was in the air, and I jumped to get the ball. Continued to rise up until my body hit the ground. As soon as my body hit the ground, I snapped back in my body.
So
And
you kind of blinked. You kind of it kind of blinked you out a bit. So you were saying that you went up to get the ball. Could you repeat that? Because it kind of, we didn't get it all.
Right. So as I jumped for the ball, my spirit separated from my body.
Okay.
And I could see the back of my head under me while my body is falling down face first to the concrete.
Oh.
And as soon as my body hit the ground, my spirit snapped back in my body. And I think that was more painful than the contact with the concrete. I know it was more startling.
The going back into your body was painful.
Yeah. Because
now,
it was done under the impact of a fall.
Do you think you left your body as a because I think about people, like say somebody falling over a cliff. I feel like a lot of those people leave their bodies before they hit the ground, because they already know, the bottom, that they're gonna die, and so they exit out. We kind of think they might have had a lot of pain, but it might just be the vessel that gets, that the fact that you see imminent death, or did your body see that you were going to hit face first. You said,
Death never came into the equation of my understanding at that time.
oh, but is that possible that that was the reason of the separation of
No,
five?
I think that the reason for the separation is that um I wasn't aware of how spiritually connected I was to the physical. I didn't identify enough with the body to bind properly with the physical form. So the euphoria of the jump gave me the awareness of the higher consciousness self that's able to see the lower vibrational self. So I just believe that like I zoomed out perceptually to my higher consciousness in order to review what I was doing at the time as a means of trying to comprehend the body and spirit being projected into the body. And that was like, they didn't have this term in science until recently in epigenetics. Epigenetics gives you the understanding of how the spirit is projected into the body. So epigenetics and the remote position of where the spirit is projecting from into the body becomes the understanding that matches the experience. Right? So they say hindsight is 2020. Like a lot of the stuff about like the imposters on the land that don't belong here, the society not running how we used to do it in ancient times, that's genetic memory. That's from past life recall. Like I can go back in my mind and I'll be right back in New Orleans in the nightlife in 1901, right? And I can remember conversations I had with people. But when you tell people this, the first thing come to their mind is he's going through a schizoid episode. He's losing his mind, right? But if you're not psychic or not aware of your psychic talent and how to use it, psychic experience sounds irrational to a rational mind.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why they call it the intoxication of the sages, or the madness of the adepts. When you go through this acute awareness that the average person can't assimilate from their perception of consciousness. So you trying to explain quantum physics to a 3-year-old that haven't even learned the alphabet yet. It's very difficult, but it's not impossible.
Excuse me. Have we been dumbed down and done and deliberately dumbed down? I know we have, but deliberately disconnected from our higher self and had that replaced by saviors and things that we need to look externally to.
The savior complexes, the God complexes, looking outside of yourself for divinity prevents you from looking inside for the inner glow, the inner divinity. Like the last dragon finally realizing he the master at the point of his own destruction. Right? At that point, when he realized he's at his life's end, that's when they say in the mystery system, it said like this: he who dies yet lives finds eternal life, because you find the secret of life. And the secret of life is that it ain't no secret, you're just supposed to live it. Soon as you start trying to micromanage everybody else's life, you can't live your own life. You live in the micromanager's job of being an agent in the matrix. The dumbing down was done to us through the same principles of AA. It's applied in a 12-step educational program designed to separate you from thinking so that you can learn to embrace being given orders, right? But the ones that's unruly in the educational system, because I seen through it in the 5th grade, I seen exploitation written all over the educational system. So I was sparsely participating. I wasn't getting no A's in school. I wasn't getting no B's in school. I was C student. Sometimes D's and E's. Because most of the time I just didn't do the work. And most of the time I didn't do the work because I something didn't feel right, and I didn't know how to tell nobody that the system that I'm in don't feel right. So I stopped participating.
Wow.
So the result of that, I end up being kicked out of school in the first semester of the 10th grade for bringing brass knuckles to school. Right? And I never had to get caught with them. But I didn't care. I didn't want to be there anyway. So to me, they was doing me the favor. Right? So when I was understanding what the school system was later doing psychological research, it's a combination of a Pavlovian response system and a B.F. Skinner's Skinner box, both used for indoctrination purposes and heavily researched under MK Ultra.
Now I know about Pavlov, that Pavlov's dog, and so that. But what is the B.F. Skinner box?
Well, the Skinner box is used to issue out punishment as opposed to treats in order to compel you to get out of a box. The punishment is the erroneous teaching pattern of the educator. It becomes torturous to remain in the class, but you have to be on your best behavior lest you incur the zap of the Skinner box, which is repackaged as the authority of the school will discipline you. Right? So the good teachers is the ones that the class always goes by too fast and you actually learn something. Their teaching career is going to be short. Mm-hmm. There's some kind of way the school's going to get rid of them or going to overwork them where they become ineffective because they are effective. So when you look at the punishment in the Skinner box and you look at the system of the bell, instead of going to the treat, you escaping the punishment. And by jumping between escaping punishment and being trapped in punishment, you learn to accept the punishing system of the workforce.
So that's in other words, okay, training, that is the conditioning. I'm sorry, conditioning for the next. I'm being careful about what I say because I was thinking about the last 2 years that became conditioning for the next. But we won't go into that right now. But it was a if you will, a preamble or prelude to what now you've been indoctrinated into that, so that now we'll be able to take more of your energy, more of your currency that you spoke of in between now and whenever your life ends.
Right.
Based on the value they placed on it.
Right. So now the society there's nothing wrong with doing work. That's not what we're talking about. It's definitely something wrong with being exploited and underpaid for the work that you do. This is what our problem is. This is what we are in opposition of. The problem with resolving that matter is the worker doesn't understand his value to the company. So he shrinks himself down in order to fit into the company's social construct. Right? So when GM was going through negotiations with the UAW a few years ago, I tried to inform the worker on how to defend themselves because they were sold out at the highest levels of the union. Right? And I knew I was right because I told them if I'm right, I got to get 3 knocks from Mary Barra, who was leading the negotiations for the Big Three. And 3 times in a row, they refused the contract. The reason being is the UAW never offered a contract to be negotiated on to the company, but instead ask the company what did they want to give the worker. And this is back to standard operating procedure, business as usual. But the CEOs of the big three, our people picked them in order for the worker to be able to be properly compensated for his labor. But the people are still so naive that they won't ask for their value, and so they still continue to get exploited and underpaid for their work. Now the economy is making it where even if they start asking for what they're worth now, your money is still not going to go as far as it should because the inflation. Everything is going up, but ain't nobody wages going up, right? And the whole minimum wage hike is designed to shortstop the high wage makers. So before, minimum wage was $1.25, a good $20 hour job was a good ass job. But now you got minimum wages in some place high as $14 an hour.
Mm-hmm.
And a $20 hour job is barely over the poverty line. That's insane exploitation of the people. And my mama used to tell me this over and over again: you can't throw people away like trash, baby. She said everybody should get what they owe, good, bad, or indifferent. These are repeated statements that she used to make. Now, as a child, I was trying to understand why my mama keeps saying this over and over, right? So it made me pay attention to the things that she repeat more than probably my siblings. And they became part of who I am, right? She used to say, baby, ain't nobody better than you, but just remember, you ain't better than nobody else, right? Ain't no big eyes or no little U's in family, right? So everybody got a part to play, and everybody can't play your part. I don't know what the hell that means, but it sounds like she's giving me something to do that can't nobody else in the family do. I don't know what it is, though. But she keeps telling me this repeatedly to drill it into my character because I'm always curious. I always ask a lot of questions, and I don't ask the same questions as the other children in my age group. So they used to call me weird. You know, the little weird kid, the little quiet boy, that little nappy head of MF, stuff like that. And I ain't like, what is this all about? Because I don't feel like none of that. What y'all saying ain't got nothing to do with me. So I learned at an early age to have a thick skin. So once I got a thick skin, I understood what's called a universal right to express yourself. That means that everybody don't have to agree with me. They ain't supposed to. If everybody agreed with me, that means it should be over instantly. So we got to have opposition.
Right.
Because it has to be a process at play where overcoming the opposition brings harmony and balance to the collective. And the only way to do that is to go through a struggle with the people out in the open in the public domain. And social media has become the universal method of communicating around the world. We can get on Facebook and Instagram and do a video that reach people in China, Japan, and in Europe.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Where years ago, we didn't have the option when Malcolm X was around and Du Bois and Medgar Evers. They didn't have the option to have the internet and to stay in the safety of their home while they tell the people what's really going on.
Right, they couldn't.
The ones who used to try to figure the problem out instead of going out in the streets marching, I ain't finna do that. Not for my own shit. I'm not finna be out here buck dancing for these people. Not for my own shit. And mama had to leave me a means to find what's rightfully ours and how to recover it. And one of the things she kept saying to me was always look for the wisdom. right? And so, understanding that, I searched through the minds of great thinkers in order to find out what is this stuff they call wisdom. Because if I can't buy it in a bottle, I got to find it somewhere. I'm thinking this as a child. So if I can't find it in a bottle, where am I find it at? Right? So the discovery comes in is you find the wisdom at the feet of the masters, right? The first master is mama. So starting from mama, who says the stuff that gives you the best result when applied to life? And this, as a child, made me pay attention to the elder women. And the elder women was the ones, especially the ones that talk harsh and use profanity. We call them big mamas. They harvest the energy of prime creator in order to be guides to the family. Under the patriarchal system, we've been taught to call them old bitches and don't pay them no attention. And they telling us the solution to all of the world's problems, but we ain't listening as a collective. Some of us do. Some of us know if mama say don't go down that street because something bad gonna happen, go the other way. Because if you go down that street, you're going to walk right into the BS. I did it 1,000 times because I learned the hard way every time. And the hard lesson is the lesson that you're going to learn and going to internalize the deepest. Because it's going to hurt the most that you keep going through the same foolishness. But when you wise up, that's going to become entrenched in you as your biggest lessons, the ones that was hardest to learn. And the hardest lesson to learn was at the feet of the masters is to follow the voice of the women who give wise guidance. And you can tell the difference by the character of the women, right? So when I see you on here complain about them calling Noble Drew Ali a false prophet, some in my soul say you can't just let that go. You got to say something. So I said something. A lot of the Moors is like, what is this thing? Where did he come from? I thought he hated all the Moors. I keep telling them over and over, I'm not anti-Moor, I'm anti-dirty Moor. So I started studying great people because I didn't really know what a master was. But the great people's information, they give references to other great people who turns out to be masters, right? And in our community, each one teach one, we all got to reach some. And if we reach enough, we can spread the information. Now, the land, the Mississippian rule, this is deep culture, organic North America. Any culture that comes on the land, we have to have a significant influence on it through the arts and the entertainment. So we can use these things in the time of crisis to communicate the recovery from the oppression or whatever adverse force overtakes us on the land. Now we have to time the solution in order to correctly end the problem. So in the course of the studies, when you run across Marcus Garvey, Noble Drew Ali, Prince Hall, David Walker, Booker T. Washington, W.E.B. Du Bois, you don't look at them in their conflicts, you look at them in their agreements, right? So they tell us that Du Bois and Garvey don't get along because Garvey is what you call a totalitarian recovery expert. In other words, he come to recover the whole of the original structures from its original source out of the Blue Lodge, where Du Bois comes from a different angle or perspective of view. He said that only a 10%, what we call the talented 10th, will ever do anything of significance to rise to positions of prominence in any society. Therefore, we should focus on isolating that talented 10th and maximizing the input in the bank, right? Now we go from the talented 10th to a 5%er, right? Because all of the talented 10th is not working in the interest of the collective. Most of them is working in their own self-interest. We don't care about that. You can work in your self-interest, but you have to leave an indelible impression that can be read by future generations to leave a blueprint or a pattern to put the puzzle pieces together on how to recover from the condition, right? So the 5%ers teach that 85% of the people blind, deaf, and dumb and don't know what's going on. And 10% of the people know what's going on and they're not doing nothing about it. But there's 5% of the people that know what's going on that's working to raise the other 85% to awareness to overcome the tyranny of the 1% who was extracted from the 10%. So the 1%ers is what they call the people that's ruling the world as elites. Has a system at play, and if we figure out their system, we can reverse engineer the society in order to find out how to get back to our rights and our ability to reclaim the land based on our birthright to the land at the close of the age. Most of us don't know that it's a universal law that we are obligated by universal law, the organics of the world, at the close of every age, no matter what's going on, to shut it all down. Anything that is destructive to the ends of the collective is dispensed with, and anything found to be a benefit is used as a bridge to the next coming age. So now we leave in the age of Pisces, the water age of believing, to the air age of Aquarius. But remember, the Aquarian man carries a pitcher of water that's being spilled. Water is the symbol for spirit. So what it's telling you is we going from spiritually believing stuff with no information to support why we believe it to the mental aspect of spiritually knowing exactly what we see in the Aquarian age. So earlier I was saying about we had to be able to see the signs significantly enough in order to know when to make our move. Now, I came out to do this work when I came home from prison back in 2008. But everybody I went to shut the door in my face. They all said that I ain't have no degrees, I ain't had no alphabets behind my name, therefore I wasn't qualified. Right? But not until Farrakhan gave a speech and Khalid Muhammad left and he said, "You think I didn't need a brilliant mind like Khalid Muhammad?" Well, Khalid, my man. I'm just like that motherfucker, but I think a little deeper. Right? Everything he be saying, I feel that way, but it's one problem. He was trying to go against the rules. He was trying to fight the enemy in the physical when it's a spiritual war taking place. Right? You can't fight a physical war that's spiritual. You have to fight the spiritual side and let the effects manifest in the physical arena. In this case, we use universal law weaponized to fight tyranny and oppression around the world. And after you go through the dark night of the soul, you begin to see the pattern in which universal laws apply. And this is where me learning the functions, structure, and intricacies of civics and the changing of rulership in past historical contexts in both hostile situations such as a coup d'etat to more amicable transformations such as a king seceding from the throne and another king ascending in his place. There is a civics solution to the problem. Well, the first time I became aware that there was a civics solution to the problem is when Noble Drew Ali said that I started a civics organization. The contradiction that made me raise an eyebrow is ask, why are they patterning it now as if it's a religion? Right? So that took me back to Albert Pike's The Morals and the Dogma. Because under the civics, there's no dogma involved because you unraveling the legalese. But if you can get them to chase the dogma, they won't really take the civics serious enough in order to exercise a superior jurisdiction to overthrow the imposters on the land, because the only way you can do it is to go back to your original system. Your original system is a matriarchal system based off the oral decree of the chieftains in agreement across the land, that which benefits the most amount of people from each of the clans.
Wouldn't there be necessity really to go back to the original system? In doing that, wouldn't there be a necessity of shedding ourselves, of divorcing ourselves of all the religious attachments, the dogma that we've taken on to be, Christians, and to be, this denomination, that, I mean, from a standpoint of when we realize that those things were actually put in place to put us under subjection.
Right.
So would we have to shed those in order to get back to the original?
At this point of the discovery process for the collective, they can use whatever path of spiritual development they choose to, as long as they don't turn a blind eye to the other paths, right? And this is where the polarization comes out, as Noble Drew Ali called it, as a religious controversy. We are, remember, we are allelopathic, and we are naturopathic first, right? That means that all things have to go back to a stasis, which is the state of balance, right? So when you abruptly tell somebody who's been in the church for 75 years, hey, drop that some garbage, the shock to their system could cause a healing crisis to a significant degree to make them lose their mind. If you go back to Elijah Muhammad, he said if you wake them up too soon, you're driving crazy. And that's why he used to keep saying, make it plain enough for a baby to understand it.
So right? What are we trying to get folks that are steeped in any level of dogma to understand? From what my where I come from, having been a pastor for 10 years, mm-hmm. and seeing the good and the ugly, you see it all, and in between.
Okay, so let's use.
Yeah, I mean, I'm saying indoctrination, and like you mentioned earlier, 12-step program, and the various, all of these things were things that affects the mind of people. Fear, reverence, so that you don't think outside the box. Having to reverence something that is unseen while ignoring the obvious inside of yourself. All of those things, to me, have been designed to not allow us to get back to the natural. I mean, you're saying, I know, and I do know what you mean about not waking up folks too soon. I mean, or not all of a sudden. Although for my personal awakening, it hit me like a ton of bricks when I was in a service, and all of a sudden I was snatched out of it in an out of body experience. And the next day, I'm up in the pulpit preaching my swan song, because right after that, everybody's going, because now I'm like you say, crazy. They say about you, I was crazy. But for me, maybe that was the way it had to happen. But for the masses, to get critical mass, and nothing really happens, I don't think, until you get enough minds thinking the same. So in your going through, I want to go back to your dark night of the soul before you get too forward, because you kind of skipped over. You said, when I came out of prison in 2008, but what about those years prior to 2008? How about the time when you were, you ended up apparently veering from what Big Mama was saying, because you were running up, maybe you were running from your calling, but in that captured, if you will, situation, what happened to you there? what were you doing during those times?
So when I first got caught up and locked up, I remember the voice of sisters that I used to hear give words of wisdom. I was in Cook County Jail. I was in there. I was like on my second or third day in there, and a bald head guy named Hawk came with a sister. I can't remember her name, and they were actually Christians, but she wasn't coming with the dogma. She was coming with raw common sense. And one of the things she said was that stuck with me. And she said, some of y'all finna get a lot of time. She said, but don't worry about that. You can't stop that. Yourself in. There is no escape, even if you want to. She said, but the best thing that you can do is don't let them take the time from you. Use the time. Learn everything you can while you in there. You don't need no degree, but get your PhD. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, that makes so much sense. So this, if I apply this to my prison term, if I get time out of this, and I apply what she's saying, when I get out of prison, I can have the knowledge of a professor at a university in the amount of time that I'm about to get, that I don't know I'm about to get this much time. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And so in the end, they gave me 18 to 50 years in prison. Right? And during my Cook County stint, well, that was like a year and a half, I end up coming across, I just started realizing that all of the most potent members of our community, the organic indigenous people, was in these cages. Right? And I got introduced by different ones, by different people. Like the leader of the Maniac Disciples, name is Ferg. I met my cousin introduced me to him on our way to court. Right? Then in the bullpen, it was some BGs, black, what they call black gangsters, that was high ranking, and he introduced me to them. Right? I had a vice lord introduce me to Willie Lord. And it was kind of odd to me when he done that, because we walking through the day room, he calling me over there where his chief at to introduce me to his chief. But he told me beforehand, he said, man, I want to introduce you to Willie Lord. Right? And I was like, okay. And because we was watching him on the news get arrested. And when he got in there, he was downstairs in a cell block called ABO in Division 1. So he came up on the visit. They brought him up to A1 where I was at. And so Lil J, who was a 4-star elite vice lord, he said, come here, man, I want you to meet somebody. And he walked over, he said, stay right here. So I'm standing on the other side of the day room, and he went and said a couple words to Willie Lord, then he waved me over there. He said, hey, Lord, I want you to meet him, man. And he told me who I was. His name Rod. And back then, I was studying with a Nation of Islam guy named Everett X, who was teaching me about, now this is all within the first year of being locked up. But he was teaching me Nation of Islam doctrine. And they was calling me Rod X. Right? But they was calling me that like a nickname because I hang out with the Nation of Islam guy all the time. But they all knew that I was under the GD banner. And so when he introduced me to Willie Lord, the whole day room stopped talking and they looking. And what he said caught my attention. He said, hey, Lord, this one right here, this is the one. I don't know what that shit means. Right? And he shook my hand and he says, it's good to meet you, young brother. He said, stay on the straight and narrow. That's all he said. He didn't give me no conversation. We didn't go into nothing. We just greeted each other, but he told me to stay on the straight and narrow. I know what that means from church, and I know what that means from Everett. And we discussed it. Right? Staying on the straight and narrow means walk straight. Right? Don't let these people push you off your path. Mm-hmm. Now, when Everett X had to leave, he went upstate. And the last thing I told him, I was like, man, this is a big deal. I don't know if I could do it. He looked at me and I could see the Elijah Muhammad in his face when he started smiling. He said, oh, you got this. And then he recited the story of Hiram Abiff. And he said, you're going to need that later. And then I heard Farrakhan go over the story of Hiram Abiff. Right? And when I started studying the story, after I got out of prison, I started seeing certain events unfolding that was unnerving to me, because this was starting to tell me there's a Masonic connection to my birthright. So now I have to study the lodges deeper than I already have, because I was going through a secret society investigation while I was studying with the Nuwaubians in prison. So I was going through each secret society, reading entire text on them, where Malachi had a book out called Secret Societies Unmasked, where he got a little part about all of them. So I started to get books from their perspective about their doctrine, right? But it became more enhanced when I came home, right? And so during the course of these years, normally my temperament, I would have been, what they call ready to ride. I was always ready to ride, but it had to be one condition. I got to be right. The only reason why I feel like that is because my mama used to tell me when I was little that don't start nothing and you're going to always win it. You got to always be in the right. So I don't start nothing, but I sure finish it. I don't got no problem finishing it. And I remember my father saying that a man always moves straight. He said, man, don't do all that funny, swervy, shifty stuff. That's not how he was talking to his friends in our garage. So this was one of my lessons on being a man from my father that really impacted my life, because I always came at people straight. And mama said, respect those who respect you. But you got to give respect to get respect. That means if I'm at your house, in order for me to get respect at your house, I got to first give you respect. I got to come in peace in order to receive peace and the blessing upon arrival. So everywhere I went, I held that in the forefront of my mind. And everybody that I met them from a level of respect, and it was returned. And this is why, as a GD, I'm over in Motown on 50th in May, living in the complex in the All-Stone neighborhood. The only folks is on 50th place, right? So I gave them their respect because that's their land. I already know to honor them on their land and give them their due respect. And they drew an attachment to me from being respectable and being respectful of their place. So I ran into a couple of confrontations with some of the Stones, but it was always resolved in a manner of respect. So I didn't ever have a problem with Stones and Vice Lords being Stones and Vice Lords. I didn't never see them as enemies because I knew we had the same enemies. So I didn't know how to categorize what I'm looking at, but I know that whoever it is that's infiltrating Stones and Vice Lords is the same people infiltrating the GDs. I understand the literature of the GDs. And I understand the literature that I was given by vice lords. And I understand the literature that I was given orally by Stones and Crips and Bloods. And I'm seeing a pattern that this is the behavior that's ancient on the land. If this behavior is ancient on the land, I got to see it somewhere else. Here, lo and behold, it emerges. It's the structure of the Nation of Islam. It's the structure of the 5% nation. It's the structure of Yahweh ben Yahweh's Hebrew Israelites. It's a repeating pattern. It's a tribal structure from the top to the bottom. How we used to perform in the old ways where we was in all parts of the land, but we never had conflicts with people on their portion of the land. Because we understood that who we are is predicated up on honoring those in respect when you in their house. You can't come in somebody's house and just superimpose your will. So whoever the imposter is the ones who came in our house and is doing what we don't normally do.
Makes sense.
So when I start tracing it back, I end up with the 32-degree Scottish Rite, Morals and Dogma, George Washington, Albert Pike, the guy that started the Illuminati, Adam Weishaupt. 3 different personas of the same person. But most people can't see the pattern. I couldn't see the pattern originally until I was studying forensic profiling and the mechanics of it. And I wanted to do a forensic profile on the biblical God character, which turned out horrible, by the way. Turned out horrible. Turns out that he's a sociopathic narcissist, early bedwetter, who has mama issues and daddy issues and don't know his own identity and sexuality, who feels that he should be held in superiority to other people just because who he is, where other people become less than him. This biblical God character can't be no God. He got to be some kind of mortal masquerading as a God through written literature. Because that's not the characteristics of the God form. So that came from a Q&A that I had in Saginaw Correctional Facility with some University of Michigan psychologists who came to do a lecture at the prison. And during the course of the lecture, I had asked them, had anybody done a psychological evaluation of the biblical God character, because I couldn't find it. And they assured me that as far as they knew, one of them had like 35 years in psychiatry and psychology. One was a psychologist for over 45 years. The other one was a psychiatrist for over 40 years. And none of them had heard of anybody having the audacity to do a psychological profile in the since it became known on this character from the Bible.
Now, with that, let me just interject my little bit of my knowledge from what I learned versus what I was taught versus what I learned afterwards in awakening process. We see God in the Bible somewhat as schizophrenic and bipolar and can't make up his mind about his love or hatred for his creation, when in fact we're not talking about one being, we're talking about more than one. We're talking about at least 2 majors and then minor characters.
Okay, so that goes back to what that's the schizophrenic tendencies and the sociopathic personality disorder. Bobby E. Wright wrote a book called The Psychopathic Racial Personality. That's the God character summed up in under 200 pages.
But if he is making this so-called God into one being with all of these personalities, I tend to disagree. I see multiple beings,
right? Because you're looking at it for what the story it for what the story is saying in its original language.
Right.
I'm looking at the God that they given the people
in the Bible.
In the they saying it's the God of the Bible.
The so-called Bible. Well, I mean, they created the Bible anyway, so
Right.
it is the God
But
of their
even
Bible.
that,
They
look,
created the Bible.
right. But even that, the character, right? We know that the character comes from a series of gods merged into one person. Well, we call it a condensed God formula. They take all of the gods, give them one name as one person, and you change those names in the translation, and the layman will never know.
Right.
But the biblical seminarians know they lying to the people, and in order to get they preaching certification, they just go along with the lie.
That's what we do.
Go along to get along. So if you continuously go along with the lie, you can't liberate nobody or free nobody mind because you live in a lie.
But I'm gonna say this, Rod, just like I've said when the times when Grand Sheik has made this like sort of like blanket statement about all preachers already know, and all preachers do not know, because
I agree.
all preachers don't go to seminary. All preachers, and if they
Right.
do, like me, they may go to a college that has a specific evangelistic focus, and is not even in comparative religion. They're always putting Christianity up as this is the example, and anything other than is an abomination. So they basically, when they do comparative religion, it's not to give you an opportunity to see that there are other sources of information that are historical and factual that this stuff is based on. Most preachers sit in churches and have sat and listened to preachers from the pulpit, got pulled into believing that they were called to do the same thing that preacher or bishop or whoever was doing, and then they get to do it, and they do it from their heart. It is later on when they get into the inner workings of what goes on behind closed doors in the back room, and the conversations and the humanity and lack of divinity of those men and women of the so-called cloth. It is then that they see the hypocrisy, and I'm speaking from experience, then that you see the hypocrisy of what's really going on, and you got to question whether any of this ish was true, because they're just out there doing this thing, but they're living a whole different lifestyle. So in defense of the ones who went in with their heart and soul in it, and didn't know that it was what it is, then I'm saying all don't know. But what I do have a problem with those who, once you find out, that they continue to perpetuate that.
Well, one of the things about those who go through the seminary that know, and those who come in as they call those hands-on preachers. They was taught hands-on by somebody in the church that helped them to learn how to basically run the church. Those are not as responsible as the ones who go read it in its original language, understand that it don't say what they're telling you to say.
Absolutely.
It's a writing by Khalil Gibran called John the Madman that expresses the sentiment of you telling these people lies. I'm gonna tell them what's really in the book, right? There's so much stuff in the Bible that you can use it for any form of manipulation you choose to, if the people don't understand their own spiritual development. It becomes a easy tool of exploitation for those seeking to be wealthy. It's a way to get a whole lot of material gain for well-placed lies. They don't have to know they lying when they come in, but at some point, the discovery is imminent. You cannot continuously read that Bible and preach, because when you start preaching in front of a group of people, most people don't know this. You start off, you might be a fraud, but you start getting messages. Hey, stop telling them lies to the people, right? And sometimes the message might come from a 3-year-old in the church saying, why that preacher lying? Right? I know when I was 6 years old, I knew they was lying because I asked my mama and got my shoulder ringed off. She wasn't mad at me for saying it. She's mad at me for saying it in church. Mama, why that man up there telling that lie? I was in Grand Rapids. We was living in Grand Rapids at the time, Grand Rapids, Michigan. That was Pastor Abney preaching. And he was going over the standard Jesus script. And this was my first time really, really, really listening as a child to somebody tell the Jesus story. He told it exactly how he's taught to teach it. And I immediately said, this man lying. As a 6-year-old. And it was a blatant outburst. All the church ladies turned around looking at me. And it embarrassed my mama to the point where she pinched me and wrung my shoulder off, got me crying up in the church. Talking about, you can't be saying that up in here. And then when we got home, later on, she talked to me. And then, because she did, even if she disciplined us, she still talked to us.
Mm-hmm.
She didn't just discipline us and didn't never give us nothing. She gave us a lot of wisdom, even though she did spare the rod, spoil the child. I don't think she gave me enough ass whoopings. Whereas some of my siblings might feel like they got too many. Right? But when
where did you fall in the, are you youngest, oldest, middle?
I'm the 7th child. And
of how many?
It was originally 10 of us. It's 8 of us left.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'll be number 7. My mama was number 7 and her daddy was number 7.
Okay. Significance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's what they call a lightning strike. And my grandmama got struck by lightning.
Really? I mean, actually.
Yeah. She was working on the fields of Mississippi down by Macomb, Magnolia, Tylertown area. And the storm came in and she got struck by lightning. That was my mama's mama. My mama said I think my mama was 5 years old when it happened. She never stopped grieving her mother her entire life.
Oh, so she did not survive the lightning strike?
No.
Wow. Right.
Yeah, that's where it ended her. But her spirit was strong in my mama. And it was due. So this goes back to the psychic connections with people. It's from the heart chakra. And it's from the place of pure love. And this is why most people can't never attain psychic abilities, is because their heart is confused with the ways of the world. Right? So those with the golden heart can shine the brightest, but they first have to get the charring off from being exposed to the dirt of society. And that's what we're working on. That's why we're here. That's what our karmic debt in being here is, to clear it by following our path of our book of life. You don't know what your book of life is until you get a certain level of awareness and look back on your life. And it's what they call dying while yet living. It's part of doing shadow work while you're going through the dark night of the soul. So when you look back on your life, you see certain patterns, key names, key figures, who's influenced what.
And archetypes. You see certain archetypes.
So archetype is part of the required study in the priesthood to allow you to understand which aspect of God you're dealing with. The highest aspect of God we call Big Mama. And the next highest aspect of God we call Big Papa. Right? Big Mama feminine, Big Papa masculine, but we call them the old energies. Right? So when you hear about them, call them the gods from days of old. It's written in a lot of the texts around the world, but don't nobody know what it means. Because they don't call for help, they can't get none. They're calling the wrong names. Right? Jesus is spelled I-E-S-O-U-S in Greek. Right? Using applied grammar, I-E becomes fused as I, S, U cancels out the O, and makes the US sound us. So when you pronounce it as a single word, it says ISIS. But the story that it's telling is not the story of ISIS, it's the story of Moses or Horus, right? So the character, the Old Testament was written as a recovery text for the New Testament, meaning the New Testament was written first.
We were told always told in the church and in Bible college that the Old Testament is the New concealed and the New Testament is the Old revealed, and that's the way they kind of played it off. But
because they got to give you the right to discover that the Old Testament is written after the New Testament, which turns religion on its head.
And we were also taught that there were 400 silent years between the ending of the old and book of Malachi and the beginning of the new, and that in those 4 years God was silent. What we do know now, those who study, is that those are years of what I guess sort of reconstruction, which ended up being a Renaissance afterward. That was when they were the Piso family and the ones that were
so the misunderstanding comes in.
The ones that were writing, like you said, the one to try to make the two in agreement. That 400-year period, that nobody could read the so-called Bible because they were putting it together.
Right, but that 400-year period is actually a period where apocryphal books was written,
which they, for the most part, disqualified from that. Like the Gnostic texts. They didn't want us to read the Gnostic texts.
Right. Well, not necessarily. They called the apocryphal books.
The apocryphal books, and then later on, the Gnostic, anything that was in Gnosis knowledge, we weren't supposed to have that. We were just supposed to believe.
Right. So they got several different groups of information that comes from this understanding of missing books of the Bible. First, source material. Because when you source material back, it's a book called Black Gods Who Wrote the Bible. No, Black Africans Who Wrote the Bible. Right? Because the Bible was written by Etruscan Moors for the purpose of military conquest, and it was compiled and rewritten, I should say, based off ancient texts in order to control the narrative. And the controlled narrative is what Rome has been doing the whole time.
True.
I used to always hear my father say, when you look for the troublemaker, all roads lead to Rome. I don't know what he's talking about. But when I followed it religiously, I ended up with the Nicene Council in 325 AD. When I followed it back politically, I ended up with something called Plato's Republic. When I followed it back socially, I ran into something called a Greco-Roman Empire. When I ran it back from a athletic perspective, I ended up with the Olympiad. So I always ended up in Rome. Mm-hmm. So when I started tracing the dirt doers back, they went straight to Rome. They went to the Nicene Council, 325 and 327. They went back to the ancient writer Origen, who was what they call a first century philosopher. They went back to St. Augustus, another first century writer of Christendom. How can they be first century writers of Christendom when Christendom don't come about until the 300s? So they lying to us automatically.
Then you had the council of, what's it called, Chalcedon of 451, where they put together the edict of what the Bible was going to be good for. You know what I mean?
Right. So this is when they was.
Yeah. Can I read that? Just a little paragraph sentence.
Yeah.
It says this council of the Roman Catholic Church, this wise and saving creed, the gift of divine grace, was sufficient for a perfect understanding and establishment of religion. So for its teaching about the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit is complete, and it sets out the Lord's becoming human to those who faithfully accept it. So agenda, they created religion, they created the characterizations and the deity of God as a part of what they were doing, and it's in their writings.
Yeah, so it's never been a secret. I was going over the bloody oath of the papacy to murder the kings, princes, and people of the land with young elder, because they put this stuff in the public domain, but most of us don't know we really seriously is in a spiritual war. In spiritual warfare, you have to fight it spiritually, and the effects is going to trickle down to the physical. If you try to fight it physical first, that's like putting the cart in front of the horse.
Right.
Right? You going out the world ass backwards, as my father used to say. Right? So when you put everything in its proper place, don't give it a judgment, and then step back and look at the big picture. Right? So they wrote all of the dirt down that they was gonna do before they done it. That's to absolve them from karmic debt before they do the act. Because now, if you agree to follow through with what they said they were going to do, that was your free will being exercised. They just influenced it. That's why they say the devil don't never tell you what to do. He just suggests it to you. It's just a strong suggestion by a power base that appears to be legitimate. And the appearance of legitimacy is predicated on the paperwork. Because if you don't have the degrees, you should not have the knowledge. Right? Which takes me to the next phase of my incarceration, where I thought I was doing all this studying in vain. So here we are 5-6 years later from hearing this lady in the day room in Cook County telling me to get a PhD. And I'm getting headaches from reading so many books so fast. Right? And the headaches is to the point where they're annoying to me that I don't want to read no more. Right? I don't know nothing about the nutritional burning that the brain is doing. But we go to a Black History celebration, and sister brings in a African dance corps. She was out of Detroit. And she don't know what this lady said when I was in that day room. And she sat there and she said, some of y'all gonna get tired. Y'all gonna think y'all doing everything for nothing. Y'all gonna feel like it's a waste of time, and that you doing a whole lot of research and studying in vain because it's not getting you nowhere. She said, but don't let that deter you. Get your PhD anyway.
So here, it was like a divine relay system. One passed the baton to the next to come, and when you needed a recharge, when you were about to, your battery was running down, when your faith in what you were doing was running down, then the Most High, Big Mama, sent in reinforcement to reinforce what you've been told.
When I used to get
let me see. See, y'all, they messing with us. Let me see. Let me see if he comes back in, y'all. Okay, let me get him back. Are you there? Can you hear? Say something.
Can you hear me now?
Now I hear you. Yes. Okay. Yeah. All right. So can you repeat that last thing?
Yeah, I was saying after the lady said that the second time, I went and talked to my mother on a visit. She had came up that following weekend. And I said, Mama, the strangest thing happened to me. And I told her the story of the first lady. And I said, then last week this lady came in here, or earlier this week the lady came in and said, and I told her the story of the second lady. And my mama said, that's the Lord talking to you, baby. You need to listen. She said, but you're going to hear it from somewhere else. Just pay attention. So I'm on the yard and I'm talking to a brother who was a recovering addict and alcoholic. And didn't nobody used to sit and talk with him because he was a recovering addict and an alcoholic. Can you hear me, Dr. G?
Yes.
Okay. Because you froze on my end. That's why I had to ask you.
Oh, okay.
So we was sitting there talking, and he said, man, I be trying to tell these young guys around here, man, all this time they got on their hands, they want to play basketball, they want to chase boys, they want to get high in the joint, and they need to be in there getting some knowledge with these free books they got. And they got law books, they got history books, whatever you want to learn. Then they got an interlibrary loan where you can get any book you need to get. I don't know why they don't just go and get their PhD and stop playing.
Three, the third time.
Yeah, so that's called 3 master knots, right? The third one came in off of a male father line who was consumed by vices, right? So it's a vice lord knock. So it's a big mama on the father line giving me a confirmation that the big mama message that came off the mother line that was confirmed by my mother was accurate. I didn't know that when it happened. I put that together years later. Because I'm always reflecting on my life and how to be a better person. I keep going over these lessons that I'm learning. Some of the strangest stuff that happened to me is I would go check a book out in the library, and the book would be so old it don't have an ISBN number, just the title and the author. And I write the title and the author down, read the book, take the book back, go back because I might have wanted to review something else a month later, and the book not there. So then I go ask the librarian, and he said, we never had that book, and here's not in our records. That used to, and it happened more than several times where I read a book that didn't exist. So then I started asking myself, where in the hell is these books coming from? That they don't exist no more. Right? But now in modern, hindsight 2020, when the knowledge was consumed, it caused the Mandela effect, which switched the timeline. And on the other timeline, the same book doesn't exist. It can't be produced on a different timeline. So every time this is happening, I'm experiencing a subtle Mandela effect, never knowing what I experienced because we didn't have a name for it. It wasn't called the Mandela effect at that time.
Sure.
We were still studying the butterfly effect.
Yeah. The butterfly flaps his wings here and then makes it something happen on the other side of the world because of the flutter of the wing. Yeah.
Yep. So he flutters his wings in Los Angeles as the energy moves back east around the world. By the time it gets to Japan, it's a full-fledged typhoon. Chain reaction, microcosm, macrocosm effect. Right? So in the microcosm, macrocosm, as above, so below, as within, so without. If you want to use universal law to affect change in the world, you apply them to the self as the microcosm, and the reaction takes place in the macrocosm of the external world. It just takes time, the bigger the event is, to manifest into the visual spectrum of the others in the 3D realm. Once you learn this, then you understand how doing real-time numerology gematria and what we call it number flipping is actually, when you're saying it out your mouth, triggering events to take place in the physical world based on what you've seen in real time and what you know from historical record and how you are looking at the problem in order to solve it. So when my mama used to always tell me, don't never let nobody take none of your brothers and sisters' stuff, I wasn't even the oldest child. Why would she keep telling me that? She supposed to be telling my oldest brother and my oldest sister, don't let nobody take your brother and sister stuff. She not supposed to be telling that to number 7. I got 6 people that got to go through.
Yeah.
Right? But I was born on the 10th. That's why I come in on 10. Because my siblings exhausted 1 through 9 already. So why am I going to wait and come? No, I got to come in on 10. So I came in 11-10. That's 11, 2 pillars, 10 toes down on the upright. Sacred seal and 68. Right? On an 11, on a 10-15 birth, which is a 7. To the 7th child, it's a knockback. On a perfect alignment of the stars to bring in an old soul that can solve the problems. Anybody can put my birth date in 11-10-68 and put in the time as 10-15 and look at the alignment of the stars.
Is that AM or PM?
AM in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
But when they look at the stellar alignment, they're going to know that that's not a normal reading for, because all of the astrologers that was teaching me astrology, how to read the ephemeris, how to look at a star map, how to triangulate the ground from the stars. I'm learning this from astrologers and astronomers that's been doing it for years. And they keep telling me the same thing. Your alignment.
You froze up again. Let me see.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, well, now I hear you. You get froze for a moment, and so you said they keep telling you about
this. So I know where I stopped at. But these people keep telling me that my alignment is not normal. Right? The only thing that's missing from the calculation is the coordinates to Cook County Hospital by longitude and latitude. And then when I'm the only male child living from that batch of sons that was born. And then what my mama went through giving me birth, they tried to murder my mama in the hospital by giving her the wrong blood that was infected with hepatitis. Right? So when my mother finally passed, it was from it was post transplant, post liver transplant, right? And because now I can remember almost everything that went on when I was born in the delivery room. I can remember the conversations that the doctors was having on the other side of the room, but I can't tell that to regular people because it totally sounds fucking insane.
Well, we not regular people, so you can tell us.
but most people don't remember being born, so they believe nobody can remember. I remember swimming and doing flips in my mama's stomach.
Wait a minute. For some reason you're breaking up. I think
before 2 or 3 years old.
Listen, I don't know if it's my side or your side, but the sound is breaking up. I think you said you remember swimming and then in your mother.
Yeah, I remember swimming in my mama's womb doing flips off her stomach.
What?
I remember like being in utero in amniotic fluid doing backflips using my mother's inner uterus as a springboard.
I believe it.
I remember hearing my mama telling my daddy, this is going to be a little badass boy here. He monkey flipping all up and down in my stomach. I can't tell nobody that. That's insanity to the regular people.
Well, for a lot of people, Brother Rod, though, I used to say this even when I was still preaching, that there's a scripture that talks about, before I formed you in your mother's womb, I knew you and I ordained you a prophet to the nations. And I think it was Jeremiah. And I always told that was just a prototype for everybody who was, before they were formed, they were known and they had an assignment that they were supposed to fill. I said, but once you make that decision and say, look, okay, I'm ready, I'm gonna go down, that man, that woman come together, that spark, then I'm gonna inhabit that body that's formed from that. Then I said you float around for maybe 9 months, because I've had preemies, but 9 months in the amniotic fluid, which I would call amnesia juice. I said, and while you in the amnesia juice, you forget what your assignment is, and so your so-called life.
That's how I discovered how to erase our memory.
Right. So your life is one of trying to remember. He said, when you come into your kingdom, remember me, reconnect me to my purpose, to myself. And was it you who said that the lights they throw in your face are like the white that the men in black do?
Right. Now, look, I thought I was crazy when I first seen this, right? Because I seen them when I came out, I seen the bright lights, and I remember immediately being dumbfounded, what they call blinded by the light, dumbfounded by all these bright ass lights in my face. And it triggered a reaction, and it brought in all my prior births. There was no lights. When I was born before, I was always born to doulas under controlled conditions. This is the first time I was born under the rule of an enemy who was uncontrolled of the conditions, and I wasn't in the ambient lit growing up. But as you get more recall of your past lives, you start remembering this stuff. And I was like, that's the major anomaly. And then I keep hearing people say, don't go into the light. And then I remember, before you born, there's no light to go into. Right? When you die, there's no light to go into. You don't see the light till you come out of the womb.
Till you come out of the womb, of the matrix. You come out of the matrix.
They saying that it's right. So when they saying don't go into the light, those are modern birthing hospital rooms. They saying abort the baby. The baby should abort itself up on birth if you see those lights, because you under the control of the enemy. But they not understanding that these lights is not part of the life-death cycle. When you really fade off, you see from a higher consciousness level everything. You're not blinded with no lights. Ain't no lights. But you see the child being born that you're gonna come back in. You're not coming back immediately when you leave most of the time. But when the child in the future that you're going to come through is being born, you seeing the life of that child. And you are having options of several timelines that this child should be born on. So when they're telling you don't go into the light, they're saying avoid the birth that you're going to come back into the light. Because if you come back in the light, you know that the enemy is on the other side acting like they doctors.
Wow. Well,
right?
many a child has come into the light.
In the midwife.
Right.
Right. Go back to the warning about the light. Where is it most famous from? Poltergeist.
Yeah. Carol Ann.
Carol Ann. Go into the light. There's peace and tranquility in the light. Right? Now, all the time, demons is trying to get Carol Ann, and the witch is telling her to go into the light. Now, flip it in reverse.
So now, let me see. Is your I don't know, your voice is breaking up. And
telling her to go.
Yeah, we're getting you like
into the light.
You're breaking up.
While her to go into the light.
Yeah.
Your sound is breaking. Your screen.
Yeah, you're breaking up. Yeah, they're putting it in the, because I can hear you breaking up too. So I'm not sure if
You want me to go out and come back in?
Try that. Just see if we can get a better. Please. Thank you all. Thank you for your patience. Let's see what's going on. Oh, we up in here, 1,200 strong, y'all. Hope y'all pressing that like, giving us the thumbs up. I hope you're sharing. If you don't, at least share it after it's over. But Brother Rod's going to come back in, and I hope you are appreciating this sort of in-depth look into the brother that's been bringing us all of this information here. He's back. Let's hope that the sound is better. All right, Brother Rod, let's see what we got.
We get any improvement?
Yes. Yeah.
Now,
yes.
From what I'm looking at, you totally black. So the audience should tell me if your screen is black or if we can see Dr. G.
Okay. Do you all see me? Put a 1 in there. Somebody put a 1 in the chat if you see me. No, I don't. Anybody see me? Did not see it. Can you hear me? Ask you, do you see me? Because I know when we first came on, you were saying you couldn't see me, Brother Robert. I see me. Oh, yeah, they see me. They got 1s all in there. Thank you. So
okay.
Believe me, I'm here.
As long as they can see you,
they can see me. They can see you too. Okay. So let's go back to this because this is so interesting. Let's go back to this birth process and the light and all that. Because this is fire. Y'all, this is fire.
Right. So go back
wait a
to
minute.
when you start
wait a minute. Somebody
birth...
says we only see me and not you. Wait a minute. If you see Rod, anybody see us both? If you see, you're looking good. So if you see us both, put a 2 in the.
I can see you now, Dr. G.
You see me?
You just came.
All right. Okay, then they probably see me too. Matt. Okay. All right. Somebody said a young guy on TikTok. Where'd I go? Here we go. I'm gonna push this up. You'll see this. Young guy on TikTok using gematria somehow matched Rod Hayes to Lucifer. Said that's a good thing. Well, if that means the light.
Hey, look. So the Lucifer effect, right? The Lucifer effect. Don't nobody know what it is, but it's written in all of the occult mysteries. Okay. The Lucifer effect is the ability to be able to read the creation from above and from below simultaneously. That's all it is. It ain't nothing else. Take all that spookism, mysteryism, all that out of it. That means that you just got the ability to see clearly from the spiritual into the physical and vice versa. Okay. It's called mirror flipping. As above, so below. What's written in the stars manifest on the ground if you know how to read them. But if you don't know how to read them, it's gibberish and nonsense. Right. But okay, so back to you for anybody that's just tuned in. So you were talking about the birth, your birth, remembering this last birth, because you know that you also talked about seeing remembering other incarnations. Yes. And seeing, when do you see future births? I'm barred from seeing the future, so I don't change it. Okay. Right, because I change it to anytime I. Where'd he go, y'all? Somebody just called me, Dr. G. I have to go out and come back in. Y'all stop calling him. He's online. So can you hear me clearly? I hear you. Yeah. Okay. So so you said you would change it if you. I would always change it for the collective to have the most functional future possible. If I could see the future, I automatically switch the timeline. But then that would be what you call averting the work required to change it correctly, which will cause a wrinkle in time that can't be compensated for. Well, since we know that timelines are not so much as chronological, but maybe multidimensional, or these other lives may be other dimensional lives, just like you talked about, the Mandela effect.
or these other lives that you remember, might you be living them out, at the same time? May they be, are we talking about lives that have literally passed and gone and not connected anymore to what you're doing? Oops, you froze. Can you hear me? I tell you, we talking good and they messing us up. You know what this is? You come in. You know what this is, y'all? Because the knowledge that's being shared is to take away the spookism, is taking away the spookism and the fear that even this kind of stuff, they don't want it to get out because they want to keep us in fear. They don't want us to be in knowing. They don't want us to be able to, go boldly into whatever battles we need to go to, knowing that, we are spirit and, we are souls that live forever. They want you to have that same mentality that we've been indoctrinated with in Christianity. Can you hear me, Rod? I'm just trying to fill in space.
Can you hear me?
Yes, you froze, but go ahead. I'm sorry. I apologize. Go. I'm just trying to keep it going.
Yeah. So, one of my past lives being born, I remember in antebellum New Orleans, being born, and the room was only lit with candles. The whole room was a whole bunch of candles. That was it. And it had a chandelier, so I know they had lighting. But the chandelier wasn't on, but it was candles all around the room. And it was an elderly, dark-skinned lady and a younger, bright Creole woman that was the doula and the birth maiden. Because you always have to have one with you in training so the knowledge can be shared most effectively by osmosis. This is why we used to use apprenticeships over job training. Because when you do an apprenticeship, you get the hands-on experience from some of the best teachers possible, the experts on the job.
Mm-hmm.
But when you do hands-on training, they just teach you the steps, but they don't teach you how to compensate for little intricacies that come up as problems on the job where you don't have to call a whole army of people to fix it. Right? But she following that principle in the streets today, like if you go to LA,
why are they freezing you? Can you hear me, Rod?
and you tell them that you a Crip, blood, they're gonna say, well, where you put your work in, who your witnesses. That means that all of the chiefs always have a witness to.
Okay, y'all, we having a little bit of technical difficulties, but I'm sure he'll dial back in. Are you enjoying this? I know you are. I am. I'm absolutely enjoying this interview. So let me see. Where are you, Rod? Nope, you're right. They don't want this information out because it is absolutely critical even to us, our empowerment, for us to go to that higher level together. We have to also go to a higher level individually. And when we can get rid of the fear of, here it comes, let me get you back in. There you are. All right.
Can you hear me now?
I don't know why. I mean, you said, I guess this is too powerful.
Well, so
you're
at this
saying
point,
you go to LA about the Crips and that's where
yeah.
Right?
So they always ask you who a witness to your work in order to solidify what your status is on the land. That's different from the mainstream cultural norm. So the culture that we use is somebody always have to be a witness that you about what you say you about, that you're gonna do what you say you're gonna do the way you said you was gonna do it. So they call that a witness to your work. Every step of the way, I'm one of the most scrutinized people when I look back on the history because I done been under review since I was, look, when my mama used to go to all these different churches and tents and trailer parks and basements, when I remember being an iron baby, and she passed me around to all these old ladies. They be old as hell. Some of them dip snuff, and they be saying, oh yeah, Shady, it's your one right here. I don't know what they talking about, but I can still remember they chatter.
Mm-hmm.
You
So
know,
you've been under evaluation since you came out the gate.
right. And it wasn't until in the last 3 years of doing this work I realized that I couldn't even be here if somebody didn't conjure me up. I have to be conjured up to come into the physical world by a group of people. One tribe cannot conjure me up. All of the tribes have to agree, because they don't know how I'm gonna behave when they conjure me up. And so they have to put me through cycles of training to temper my temperament so that I can have enough self-control to be useful. Otherwise, I'd be useless to the collective, and I'd be useful to some tyrants. Right?
So
But
when you decided to do what you were doing, to take it on like you have, with your whole heart and soul into this, it was it back in 2008 when you came? Or because personally, I just discovered you this year. Video dropped up, and it was this year, and I was like, who is this man? And I said, he's a record keeper. Remember when I first, and so I tried to contact you, or I wanted to contact you, and then I said I'm gonna interview him one day, and then you saw Grand Sheik and I doing a live in the park, and you reached out, and then I didn't believe it was you. But I'm just saying, I'm like, where'd he come from? But you didn't just start doing this, obviously. But
no,
when did folks start noticing you, that from your perspective, the way you're noticed now?
over the last 3 years mostly, but there were certain people in certain places who knew where I've been and what I've been doing since birth.
Okay.
Been getting reports every step of the way. When I make mistakes, I don't let other people pay for my mistakes. That was a rare quality, but none of them believed that I was ready because they didn't realize how.
Got you blocked. I mean, break it up again. And it could be your internet. Maybe it's the speed on your phone. Can you hear me? It'll be back there, y'all. Yeah, I know why. I know why. I know why. I know why. And you would think we were saying something wrong and something crazy, but what we're saying is true. What we're saying is empowerment, and that's the problem. Where you at? You back, Rod? You were back. Can you hear me? Okay, he's gonna come back in. I see where Paul Wright L wrote, why is it so important to free Larry Hoover respectively, and why is he, sorry about that with the noise in the background, a big part of things? Can you explain? Well, he can explain when he comes back, but from what, if you've ever heard him speak on it, free Larry Hoover, he said, it's like a battle cry. It's not just, while there is importance about, okay, let him tell you. Brother Rod, there's a question that and I'm just going, even though we're talking about you, but can you explain this for those who've never heard you explain? Why is it so important to free Larry Hoover respectively? Why is he a big part of things? Can you explain? Please explain.
Yeah, I don't have no problem with that. It's not just Larry Hoover.
That's what I was getting ready to say. That's a battle cry, a rallying cry. or
Right.
lots
So
of the
when we got the 7.4 earthquake in New Mexico, they asking me in a series of exchanges of what we call knocks to knockbacks. The Galactic Council asked me for my leader because of the work that they seen me doing. They want to know who it is that I'm up under, who is the leader of the clan that I'm in, because I made all of the successful moves to reclaim our inheritance from the enemies. So when they ask me who I follow, who is my leader, I have to give them my clan leader. I can't give them no politicians because they're not our real leaders. I can't give them none of those corporate big hats because they're not our real leaders either. I
Mhm.
can't give them a celebrity. I have to give them somebody that's from the land organically, who walked the same path as me before me, who may not be who people want him to be, but he is who he is to us as a people. The same way the free Larry Hoover, it also equally applies to Assata Shakur, the one formerly known as H. Rap Brown, Malachi Z. York, Chief Malik Angel Bay, formerly known as Jeff Ford, Black Peace Stone Nation, Stan Tukey Williams, who we believed was put to death but was actually put in cryostasis at Area 51. The only person that I would accept that wasn't one of us, that was one of us, that was seen in the public uh, on a regular basis was Farrakhan. Because when I did the science to trace back who the matriarch was, I ended up with Mother Khadijah. Using the rules of the land applied on the things that's operating on the land, I have to find the highest ranked matriarch in order to know how to restore our people. If we can't find her, then we don't know how to read the signs effectively enough to know the difference between the imposters on the land and our own people. Well, I clearly seen who she was. Farrakhan has the evidence and the verification proof, and he already presented it, and it's already been verified that all of the stuff that I said was accurate. So when they asked me for my leader, the only person I can give them, being that ever since I was, all of my cousins in my age group that I grew up with from in Chicago, I didn't live in these three cities is Grand Rapids, Michigan, Chicago, Illinois, one spot and learn the culture. The culture is all across the land, but you have to be exposed for a period of time to be able to assimilate this piece. Also, in before I went to prison, I lived in Mississippi. I lived in Memphis, Tennessee, Knoxville, Tennessee. I lived in Seaford, Delaware. I lived in Newark, New Jersey, New York, right? I had to traverse the land, and a lot of these trips from these places was by bus, Greyhound.
Mm.
So here I am riding a Greyhound across the land and surveying the land, right? And so these, to me, these are translatable signs that other people that's listening that know how to read signs can translate, right? And so when they ask why is Larry Hoover relevant to our struggle, is because he was taken from us, a leader that we picked on the land ourselves. The government didn't pick Larry Hoover for the people. The people picked Larry Hoover, and the government rejected him and rebelled against the choice of the people. The same with Chief Malik Angel Bay, right? And it's a whole list of leaders in our communities that was being picked by the people, that was ruthlessly hunted down by a government operation called COINTELPRO, right? COINTELPRO is short for Counterintelligence Program, and the goal was to stop anybody, one of us with the capability, which everybody I named was capable, but it's one problem. You can't be a bond servant and redeem the land. You can't be in prison and call yourself the chief because you're under somebody else's subjugation. That means you are in a foreign jurisdiction. You can't give orders if you're in a foreign jurisdiction on your own land. That means you've been conquered. So me being the next in line saying, hey, if we gonna do what's right, we gonna unilaterally do what's right. Or I don't want to do it. I don't want to do half of what's right or a piece of what's right. I want to do the whole thing, change the whole thing to correctness, or I don't want anything to do with it. Right? So it's not just Free Larry Hoover. That's just the condensation of all our complaints. The adrenochrome harvesting, the women trafficking, the sex trafficking, the children, the kidnapping the children, the selling us for in the open market using our birth certificates, trading bonds. All this has to stop in order for us to ever see true prosperity and a new golden age on earth. And because my give a fuck meter don't move, for lack of a better way of putting it, I don't care enough about the enemy's well-being to not take them off our land. Whereas some people become so familiar in associations with the enemy that they don't care to remove them from the land, from taking food out of our babies' mouths. You don't have to agree with me. I'm still gonna fight for you. Because the universal laws say you got a right to believe whatever you want. You got a right to think whatever you want. Be you right or wrong, that's your right. I can't take that from you. That's inalienable. Because if you didn't have a right to think what you want to think, then your thoughts wouldn't be enclosed in your own self-head. They would be on public display at all times for the random person to come through and change them. But that's not the case. So you got a right to believe what you want to believe. You don't have to agree with me. I'm just going to tell the truth until everybody understands from frequency and vibration and verification of receipts. So don't believe me, check the receipt. Argue with the receipt, don't argue with me. That's my philosophy. The receipt's on the record. Been building up for 3 years.
Yeah. Well, and in the fullness of time or at the right time, that's when I came across you. I wasn't supposed to, I'm assuming, until now. And so it's a good thing. Have you mentioned the Galactic Federation? I received a call from a sister, and I was supposed to be reaching out to you. I'm sorry. I apologize, rather, to the sister who was a part. Have you ever heard of the Committee of 300?
Yeah.
So she
Committee of 300.
Yeah. So it's sort of it's I believe from what I got, it is sort of galactic in its origin, and she is a part of it. And so she watches. I know she might have seen it, might be on here, I'm not sure. But when she first reached out to me, it was like the committee is trying to figure out who you are, and she kind of wanted to have a conversation with you. But I was wondering if you were familiar with that.
Oh.
She was selected to be part of the Committee 300.
I don't doubt it.
Yeah,
first and foremost, because I had some of the most prominent Moors, when they seen me surface 2-3 years ago, came to me and told me, let's see what you got. Let's see what you can do. Right? And I didn't know them, and they all grand sheiks, several of them across the land. But I didn't know they knew who I was or had heard of me until they contacted me.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
And have they been silent ever since? Have they been in the forefront?
Well, that's the rule. Matter of fact, one of them called me. He said, "Brother, I'm not even supposed to be talking to you, but I know who you are, and after all this long wait, I had to see you and talk to you for myself." So he knew who I was even better at that particular point in time than I did. But I was more from the standpoint of I can solve the problem, but the people don't really want the problem solved. They'd rather go along to get along. So I don't want to participate under those conditions. And he told me, he said, I know you're going to fix it, but before you do what you're going to do, before the world see who you is and see you do what you're going to do, he said, I had to call you personally. He said, I've been waiting a long time to finally get to talk to you. So he knew who I was. Right? Now I know for a fact that all of these Masonic lodges know who I am. I got too many messages that's
see that depending on what you get ready to say, then they break you up. Let's see, y'all. This is fire stuff. This is stuff they don't want out. This is stuff they don't want out. They don't want you to know this stuff.
Lodges very.
All right. Okay. Watch yourself, y'all. In the chat, be respectful. Be respectful. Okay. So, anyway, where were we? Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, you were talking about. I forgot what you were. Oh, there you go again. All right. For the most part, y'all are being respectful. A couple of you are being not respectful, but we always gonna have to have both sides on here. You just gotta be respectful in your disagreement. So far so good. Or at least I missed your comment if it was absolutely out of pocket. Let me see. All right. Are you there?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's the speed because you're on your phone, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes the speed and all this being on all this long, the speed is a factor, so it slows you down. Plus, I'm pretty sure that they throw in some monkey wrenches in there because they don't.
Yeah, because I sure was saying that the Masonic lodges know who I am.
Right.
And they didn't made it clear that they knew that I was here and that I was coming to clean this shit up. And they've told other people who've in turn come back and asked me, is it true?
Really?
Yeah. And those are card-carrying Masonic brothers of good standing in the lodge with a good reputation among the brothers of the lodge and the people in the community who've been in the community being active workers in the community. So I know they know what they're talking about because other than listening to my videos, and I don't be talking a whole lot of Masonic stuff, but I'm they dread. Okay. All of the ones that corrupted the lodges, because the lodges used to be rites of passage programs for the princes to learn how to rule and govern the people on the land, and it were all used and weaponized against us by some slimy, dirty, underhand players from the back rooms. As Farrakhan say, a few of you in a few smoke-filled rooms making decisions while the mainstream of the masses, poor, black, white, red, yellow, and brown, are suffering in this nation. Them the ones who know who I am that don't want me to be here. But it ain't nothing they could do about it because I'm protected by forces beyond their reach. So I don't care. I walk down the street like a regular person because to me, I'm just a regular person. Not until somebody asks me the questions about the redemption of the community and the information come out that they find out this ain't no regular motherfucker right here. There's something strange and different about him because he know what's going on and he's doing something about it. And he don't care what we think. That's the problem. I don't care what the people who's in that verse think for one reason. They don't know what I know. True. And if they don't know what I know, and I say, okay, well, since you think I'm wrong, I'm going to quit. Then we ain't going to never get nowhere. right? So I'm gonna keep telling the truth. I'm gonna keep pointing at these dirty, dirty players until they all get drug out in the open. But we already at end game now. See, Big Mama gave me a mission that as soon as I got done with the mission Big Mama gave me, you called me. That's not a coincidence. That is a coordinated attack from the spirit for us to
Mm-hmm.
do this and to tell the people to update across the land. Big
Absolutely.
Mama sent me on a mission.
That's right. And
My mission was successful because I told her I didn't give a fuck what she needed me to do. If it's gonna fix the problem, if it's digging dog shit with my bare hands to get to the solution, I'm gonna be a digging dog shit scooping ass. Because it's fundamentally wrong and repugnant to who I am to see the people suffering from people being selfish, greedy, naive, and senseless. And if I got good senses, then that take me out of the category of the senseless. And if I ain't naive no more because I see what's going on, that take me out of the category of the naive, which tells me I'm not poor and defenseless, right? Which tells me that I can say something out in the open that contribute to us recovering from this condition that we've been in that's adverse to us as a people. In the Jubilee year, at the close of the age, after the contract been closed a minimum of 3 years, the people shall receive their redemption rights in the public domain. So this becomes a public notice by default from Big Mama saying that she want all her daughters to get their shit because she sent her baby boy in there to get it and he left no stone unturned. And so now, whoever they is, whatever lodge they hide in, whatever secret society they under the covers of, whatever back room they dealing in, ain't nowhere to run and ain't nowhere to hide. Cause Big Mama sending them boys, mama's boys, the real ones, to come get your ass, cause we know who all of the dirty players is, because we had enough time to study their moves. It's just chess. Checkmate, motherfuckers. That's how we say it. Big Mama say checkmate. It's over. I'm not gonna leave no stone unturned. Where they all flipped over, ain't none left in the creek. They all on the bank now. So since
yes,
they all on the bank, we might as well break the bank and bring it on home. So I don't want nothing until all the man got all of theirs. And once they all paid, run man. So I had to go through the process of the refining of the information, the clarification of the misunderstandings, the showing of the misdirections from the David Copperfield show, which your earrings made of copper, to realize that it was just an illusion. And the three sisters talked to the seven sisters, which is a moon flip to a Pleiadian knot, in order to resolve the matter of the Pleiadian light lot that was secured by an Arcturian agreement at the Galactic Council. That we can't get under this shit unless one of us, organics to the earth, figure the solution to the problem by understanding all of the areas of people activity and how to effectuate change. One of us. We don't all have to do it, just one of us. But part of the problem is the one that discovers it now has to be on a Paul Revere ride across the nation. Instead of saying the British is coming, the organics is coming back. They coming back home to serve eviction notice on all of the squatters on the land. That's a knock to Dane Calloway, by the way. Because my cousin, Big Ray, and Ray is the name that they give chiefs. They name him Ray, and they name him Son. And the one that they call Big Papa is called the Big Son because his son is always named after him, and he the little son, or when they call him by his name, whatever his father name is, he the little that.
mm-hmm.
So you got John, which is Uncle Johnny, and his son is Little John, right? So when we know how to read the language, My cousin flipped to me that the life is a game and he who dies with the most toys win. All you got to do is slow down. You already ain't scared to look in a book to find the solution. Follow that pattern and repeat until you get to the victory lane. My mama said the race don't always go to the swift. Sometimes it go to the slow. So watch the tortoise and the hare. So she flipped me because I always say I'm slow as a turtle. So it's a turtle nation knot off of a gorilla's back. You can't help it. They got to return everything they fucking took. All we got to do is get the message out to our people that it's over as soon as they do what I was forced to do during this beginning of this stuff. Divorce yourself from the fallen system that you get drugged down with it. Most people can't do that from fear. But Big Mama told me, fret not thyself for evildoers. For yea, as I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil. Well, I told her, well, not only will I not fear no evil, I will destroy all evil that oppose my ability to impose righteousness across the land. So bring it on if you want to play. I'm a ghetto boy. Make my day. Right? So when we get to the real root of what's going on, I couldn't always tell people what I knew because I needed a way to tell it to them on their own level where they can digest the information and use it to their greatest advantage. The greatest advantage is this process that we are under right now because the sisters started separating themselves from the system July the 4th, and when a sufficient number of them separate, it's over whether the men do it or not because we're going back to matriarchal rules, the children first, family first, and the rest of that shit can take a backseat to hell. We don't want it if it's not benefiting the collective.
I think it's interesting that the movie that's coming out, I don't know whether it's coming out is it before the summer's over or in the fall with the Warrior Queens or whatever. I think it's very interesting. Viola Davis.
I haven't seen that movie, Dr. G.
The trailer, well, it's not out. It's not out, but the trailer is like, it makes you like, yes, you know. It to me is it even puts Black Panther on the back burner because it's like Queen, what they call them queens, but you know we know what queen means, but it's melanated sisters fighting and destroying, doing exactly. I think it's a metaphor for what needs to happen in the spiritual realm.
Not only is it a metaphor, it's rooted in historical facts.
Right.
Here's a historical fact. When the men couldn't get the job done on the battlefield, the women got the job done. And so just so that people can have a reference to what I'm talking about, research Nzinga.
Queen Nzinga, yeah.
Research Queen Makita and research the Candace Queens. When they said Alexander conquered the world, when he ran into the Candace Queens, he made a sharp left turn and went into the Indus Valley. He didn't want no parts of that. Right? When the Nzinga brother, the general of the military, kept getting his ass handed to him by the Dutch and the Portuguese, she gave him a final warning before a battle. She said, if you lose this battle, don't come home. I'm going to take over the army and I'm going to show you how victory is won on the battlefield. And he went to go fight the Portuguese and the Dutch. They handed his ass to him. The scout came back that she sent to follow him and said they getting their ass handed to him. As they was in retreat from the battlefield, she passed them on the battlefield going to the fight. She was kicking their ass so bad they wanted to negotiate. But they wanted to humiliate her by making a woman stand up. She got gorillas for bodyguards. We don't play that. You're not going to disrespect this sister. I be her seat. She can sit on me because you ain't going to look down on her in my presence. Right? So the man becomes a proper support, even in a secondary position. You still got to be the proper support for the sisters And when we can't get the job done, we have to recognize Big Mama got a group of girls that she sent in at the end as the final cleanup crew, and they tear this motherfucker up with the laws of nature. They don't. They not finna go fight you with their fists. These are the final. You don't want this part to happen, but you will know if it do, because it's gonna be the most beautiful storms you ever seen, tearing shit up, coast to coast, 360 around the globe. Right? It's a hurricane, but it's pink lavender with lace swirl around it. Who's seen that shit before? This
And
how they
that's
do,
why
because
they call it what? A hurricane.
but we in the ancient days we used to call it the most beautiful destructions, because it'll be a hailstorm, what they call gorilla hailstorm, with fist size hail balls falling, and it might be lightning in purple, green, and lavender tints of electrical bolt in the middle of the storm, and it looks so sweet you don't want to go in, but them hail balls get to hitting you, you can't stay out there, right? But you want to see it, but you know it ain't safe.
Right, right,
That's how
right.
you know when the final wave finally hit, when Big Mama finally turned her big girls loose.
Mm-hmm.
You ever heard the saying, put on your big girl panties?
You're breaking up again.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Somebody had called in and interrupted my feed.
Okay. Stop calling him.
But you ever heard the term "put on your big girl panties"?
Yeah, yeah.
That's what they all
That's when it get
matriarchs.
real. When it get real, you're gonna have to deal with this issue. Yep, you're gonna
Yeah.
have to put your big girl panties on and like
Don't
go out.
don't make them sisters put on their big girl panties. Talking about earthquakes. So when they say put on your big girl panties, this way, it's a certain energy that the women lock on to when they dance and they shaking their hips. It's called the sway of the matriarchs. They can make mockery of it in the Dumbo movie, and you see the elephant swaying back side to side.
Mm-hmm.
I actually posted some sisters doing it in Africa, and they all dressed in blue dresses. I think that's on my Morpheus page, but it might be on my Rod Hayes Facebook, because they deleted my other Rod Hayes off Instagram. But the dance is a conjure, and it's only to cause earthquakes. And the more of the grand matriarchs, in order to be a grand matriarchs, they have to have a certain amount of prestige as among matriarchs. The men don't rank the matriarchs; they rank each other by most loved, most respected. And the ones who reach the top become Big Mama's representatives, ambassadors to Earth. And when the daughters of Earth is subjugated, they the last line of defense after they send me. And y'all don't want them sisters to come out, because when them earthquakes hit, they don't just shake local areas, they shake land masses. So I got videos already in past where I was talking about the women in the marching of the matriarchs. The March of the Mayors is a 50 sisters conjure that was done in order to ensure that they can't lose. Once they done that, it was over with. It's just a matter of the magnitude of the events is going to cause a certain amount of time for it to come from spirit to physical, because a global change is so huge. The minimum amount of time on the turnaround is 3 years. And that's why when we close the contract out July the 4th, 2019, it took 3 years for the women to decide to begin a migration away from the old systems around the world. What we don't know in America, and the mainstream media is never going to cover it, is they still watching what's known as the Soviet Republic of China, the SRP. They not in power. The Republic of China, ran by the matriarchs, took over 3 years ago, and I had posted it when it happened because I had to put it in the public domain. So when I tell people I've already reported on, it's nothing new. Every one of these countries now is working on restoring their original matriarchal order. It's just that we the last ones left.
Well, you
But
had a lot of them. Look, I mean, quick wisdom, but you have all these mayors. I mean, like a prime minister. Boris Johnson resigned, and 50. They said ministers resigned all over. You know, the alleged guy in Japan was murdered, allegedly, or maybe not. Maybe it was a show. But all of these, you see, all of these leaders either stepping down or being brought down for some reason or another. I mean, this is a lot happening at the same time, so it is a signal of something, of change, definitely.
right. So in corporate America, the women is taking over the CEO positions. It's not that the men not allowed to have CEO positions. It's just that they have to first make it a new culture at the CEO position to have the interest of everybody in the company at heart when decisions is made. And women does this naturally. So Mary Barra from General Motors is leading the matriarchal reclaiming of the corporate America from the secret societies that was ruling it. And that's on the corporate side. On the political side, there's key women, all of them not revealed, in political places that's going to be making statements to reveal that the matriarchy is back in control. All this is going to just unfold after we see what happened with the tribunals that's going on with the deep state scenario. All that's got to come out to the public domain. And we going from Pisces believing to knowing in Aquarius, and we at the part now where we beyond the 50% mark of the year.
Listen, I'm gonna see how I can say this because I don't want. I saw a video, and I don't know if it's still on YouTube, but somebody I think either sent it to me, but I was looking at it on my television, and literally they have a video out with the guy HB, you know, the son, and with excerpts from the
laptop,
and the parts they trying to show it so you don't look, but you can see literally what pretty much what's going on in that. And I'm thinking, if this don't make some changes, I mean, it should have happened before his father got in, but nevertheless, I mean, somebody has a video out there, like a little music video, they're calling it, and they have clips from it. Literally, I don't know if anybody else has seen it, but I saw it yesterday, and I was like, "Can you hear me?" I couldn't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Can you hear me? Yeah, I hear you now.
Dr. G?
Yes.
Okay. So I've been telling people for about 3 months now, watch the Hunter Biden laptop so you don't get caught off guard. Because it's the straw that broke the bull's back.
It's out.
Once they entered into congressional evidence, that was the public notice that it was going to be the source by which they expose everything. So now they slow leaking clips from the laptop as a indicator of what's to come, and they're doing this because they have to soften up the people so they don't take it so hard when they realize how deep this rabbit hole went for us to reach the bottom and clear it all the way out. The Biden, the laptop, I'm not going to say nobody's name, but right. The laptop is going to trigger another laptop scenario in a different file out of New York about some child sacrifice that's going to also expose, or it's going to come out in a cross section of information between the Maxwell House trial, which was coded, by the way, just so I didn't get you.
The coffee trial, yeah, I got it.
Right. So her trial and the laptop scenario, or the two laptops, gonna all end up converging at the pizza parlor, if you get what I'm saying.
I get you.
So while they exposing what's going on at the pizza parlor, that's going to be the shock and awe and the last hurrah to give the people the inside scoop. And this is when we going to start having 24-hour tribunal TV showing us all of the people that's been tried and what they've been tried for: crimes against humanity, human trafficking, sex trafficking, drug trafficking, arms trafficking, all kind of stuff from all over the world. You're going to have high figures of society being dirty laundry drug out in the open, because the military strategists say if the incoming king wants to win favor with the people, after he's thwarted the conspiracy, he dragged the conspirators out before the people and lay the conspiracy bare so that the people can understand the doom that they were rescued from, and they become supporters of the king as he restored the land and the water and the air. The people not gonna never support you if you don't show them the ugliness that you went through and on the behalf of the people in order to restore everything, right? So while we doing public notices to the grassroots, because that's all we doing with these conversations, trying to educate the grassroots on how to see beyond the charade to see the show going on behind the scenes. So I had to break it down into what you call bite-sized morsels and throw a couple of colorful epithets in there, because to be politically correct when the politics
We got you. They got you breaking up again. Can you hear me, Rod? Because you're breaking up again. We are ready to close in just a bit, y'all. I appreciate each and every one of you all. If you came in late, because I see a bigger number than there was before. If you came in late and you didn't see the beginning of this video, this interview, I want you to go back and give it another look and share it, because this has been very, very eye-opening and a look into the life and the background of Brother Rod Hayes, how he has gotten to the place where he is now, because so many people have been focusing on just what he says, and not as many have been, knowing the man behind what the man says. So we appreciate you all for being on here. You're 1,300 plus strong, and that's a good thing. I want you to like, if you haven't, please subscribe to this channel. And I want to say this to you, Brother Rod, whatever you want to finish, try to get it in right now before they block you, and then I'll do they bringing you up. So whatever you were saying, look, go on with it.
Okay, so this is where we at the end game. We really, really, really past the end game now. So what we need to be looking for is a sudden dump of information. This gonna come all at once, because it's been held back and it's been seeping out in little clips. So that's like a leak before a dam break. That little sprout of water in the cartoon before it ruptured the whole dam. And you can't stick your finger in there and plug this one up. Right?
Right.
So the exposure based off of the messages I'm getting it's imminent. But I can't give a date because I'm not allowed to see the future dates. I can only read the real time, and then I can do a mathematical probability. I can also do what they call a stellar alignment probability, according to the alignment of the stars. But for those who want more information, you can ask the oracle readers, the card readers, and the psychics, because at the time now, the energy level is so high that the accuracy levels is higher than they ever been in modern history. They haven't been this accurate since they was hijacked by the Romans in Greece in as oracle priests of Delphi. Right? They were accurate like they are now back then. And when the Romans took over Greece, the accuracy diminished until now it's returning. So you can ask oracles to do card reads on these current events and what do they indicate, and they're gonna all give you a general time frame to work from based off the movement of the energy. Some of them gonna be so latched on to the energy, it's gonna be like binge watching your favorite TV show. They gonna keep coming back every day doing spreads on the same energy because they'll see the changes that fast in the oracle read. A lot of times when I tell people that don't understand what I'm saying, I say refer to the oracles and ask them if my information is correct, because what you can't see with the spiritual eye, you looking physically, they can see spiritually what I'm telling you, and then they can tell you physically what it's going to mean, because they're catching the energy as it's changing in real time, and they're using the focal point of whatever their oracle style is. Some tea readers, some read runes, some read cards, some read entrails, some read nuts, some read shells, but they all got their own way of interpreting those energy signatures that's coming in from spirit, right?
Yes, and I'm kind of running while you're speaking. I'm running about four different readers on the information about four different ones I know do reading. So you might want to reach out. But there are folks
Oh,
that are on YouTube that are doing daily. You
yeah.
know,
So my some of my favorite tarot readers is Blue Rose Tarot has uncanny accuracy. Also, I listen to Brittany Madison, who has an uncanny accuracy. She's actually done spreads on the because and she did some other reads too. I asked her to do a couple of other reads and she done them. Um, then you also, it's a sister on here who's looking at the organic side of the tribal side named Chief Janace. She's pretty intuitive and coming from more of an academic angle from her intuition, and she's sharing information. There's a couple more of them. I don't have them all off the top of my head like that because I'm horrible with names, as hard as I might be there. But those are just some of the ones that that I listen to who has uncannily accurate information, and I can also use the information to go into more detail.
yeah. Well,
Right, so I can listen to a tarot spread and refine the reading by adding more definitions to more parts of the cards than the reader is actually doing.
mm, wow.
My
Yeah. So you
audience
got
love to
that
see.
background. You got that background. Listen, we are 2 hours and 39 minutes into this wonderful show. Not even want to call it show, broadcast, information, broadcast update. And again, I just I'm open, honest, transparent. Planned another planned another show for this evening, and then we had to postpone it for another time. And at short notice, reached out to you, Brother Rod, who, as you said, you had just finished completed an assignment that Big Mama had sent you on, and you were like, "This is perfect, perfect." I think you were thinking about update, and I called you about update, but then I was led to ask you, "Let's talk about you." You know what I mean? Let's talk about
Mhm.
what
Yeah, because a lot of people don't know the struggles that go with doing this work.
right?
Like I'm doing fast sometimes 30, 40 days, 50 days in a row.
Fast? Did you say fast?
I'm fasting.
Fasting. Okay, that's what I thought you said. Okay. Yeah. So you break it up again though. See, I just can't imagine that unless that somebody, well, I do imagine that they are actually interrupting this broadcast, which has been absolutely, but you said for 30, 50 days, you're doing 50-day fast. Is that what you said?
All kind of fast. Some of them be 3 days.
Okay. Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, yeah. Some of them be 3-day fast, 7-day fast here, a 20-day fast, a 30-day fast. The longest one was about 50 days. And if you go back and look at my videos, you can see how skinny I was.
I remember seeing one with actually, I think the picture that I used on here, you look real skinny. Your face was real thin. The picture I used for the, that you a lot slimmer, a lot more slender. Yeah.
Right. So I went, my physical condition is about 260 to 268. I had got all the way down to 180 something pounds. So I lost almost 100 pounds doing fasts alone. That don't got nothing to do with the meditations, the shadow work, facing the demons. And that's generational curse breaking. That stuff not easy. It sound easy, but most of us don't understand that we actually breaking generational curses by changing certain behavioral patterns that we picked up from our parents.
Mm-hmm. Wow. And yeah, and it's a lot of things you got to face, and then you have to all of the. It's almost like Prometheus. It's almost like, well, whichever one it is.
I always tell people
you're breaking up.
Can you hear me, Dr. G?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's a lot of work went into this. A lot of years of studying went into this. My library is ridiculous. I got like probably 20 totes packed up with books, and I'm not done packing.
Wow. And how much time did you actually end up doing of that 18 to 50 year sentence?
About 16 years and 8 months.
Okay. So you did some time. So you had time to get your PhD.
A couple of them, because my favorite. Okay, so you have what you call your what you naturally drawn to is medicine. That's me. Me and my cousin Calvin were supposed to be doctors together. He went to university to become a medical doctor. I went to the underworld to become a witch doctor. We still became doctors. We just different kind of doctors.
Okay.
But I became a witch doctor to hold up our agreement that we both be doctors. This one of the things that entails is becoming a naturopathic physician by studying naturopathic medicine.
Right.
Right. Now I don't have what they call the degree paperwork. So what I have to do is find one of us on the land from where I'm from to send the people to that got the paperwork. And that's Dr. Pittman here in Pontiac from Herbalife. You can find him on my YouTube page. If you put in Herbalife, you can't miss it. That's what it is. And it's in Pontiac, so you'll know it's the right one. But I refer people to him because he got the paperwork and he know the information that I know about health and maybe even more. I'm inclined to believe that he's more versed in what he call Ayurvedic medicine, which is a naturopathic medical training. Every doctor from India goes through it with their Western medicine teachings. So if you get a doctor from India and they want to write you a prescription, always ask them what's the organic treatment for this that's a naturopathic remedy, they'll have to give it to you because as a doctor, if you ask for alternative treatment that's effective and they're aware of it, they obligated under their Hippocratic oath to give you the information. So the last physician that I was attending was from India, and I used to ask him all of the information to get all of the. I used to be in there, um, quizzing his interns and asking them medical information. And one of my favorite things to ask them is the most fascinating thing they learned about the human body. Because for me, the most fascinating things was you don't just have a heartbeat, you got a brain beat. Your brain beat like your heart. That was so amazing to me. So when I started doing my fetal studies, fetal development studies, it made sense because the same stem cells that form the heart is also pulsing, forms the brain. The central nervous system is formed in a straight line, and from that, the heart and the brain both come from different parts of it.
Right, the
And
spine being the covenant governing vessel where it
yeah,
starts to form on. Yeah.
and your third brain is your intestines. And if you learn to control your appetite, you can control your base desires for anything.
Yep.
Increases your willpower overall. That's why we train fasting so hard, because we actually are at an internal war to take control of our willpower from our ego self that the society created. It's a power struggle. W.E.B. Du Bois called it the warring soul in souls of black folks, right? And he described it as the Europeanized white self is in conflict with your organic black self, right? And
Wow.
you are in a dilemma at all times on which side, which one of these selves of yours do you take sides with? As soon as he told me that, I said, I want the organic side out the gate. I don't want the other side. They can keep
I know that's right. I know
I
that's right.
right. The society created that by other people's opinions of me. That don't match my opinion to me, so I don't accept that.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So they told my mama I wasn't gonna never learn nothing. They told my mama that I was gonna be incorrigible and that I'm always gonna be slow and behind everybody else academically. But they didn't know is I was just biding my time so I could jump in another lane, burn rubber, and leave their ass in the dust. Because the same people that told my mama that when they was my age didn't know half the shit I know.
Right. So here's something else probably people did not know about you, that you had such a a background in holistic and herbal medicinal formulations, and just the knowledge of what is and what isn't going on a holistic basis. But you and I have spoken before, and you have shared that with me. For me personally, I the same thing you have with the doctor that you mentioned, Dr. Botanica, who I also advertised, on the channel. He and I, Brother Dave, but now more Dr. Botanica and I work together because I do the AO scans, and when those reports come up and show all of this stuff is going on, not now he can read, I can read them, but he can read them from his medical, holistic, and medical practice, and he does use a lot of Oriental medicines. He understands and understands and understands. So we work together. So once I do the scan, then he gets the reports, and then he can give them protocols and so forth. And I've seen so much. I mean, my cat was listless for like some of y'all have seen me pick my cat up sometime and put him, let him be seen. Well, 4 days ago he became ill and listless, and he hadn't eaten for 3 days. And I was getting ready to take him to the emergency place where they wanted like 350 notes to walk in the door, just to walk in the door, not to do anything to him. And finally realized, scanned him, and all kinds of things were going on with him. And even the chakras were out of whack. I mean, of the cat, and and they have some extra different chakras that we don't. They have something called a bud, which is on each one of their feet, that chakra. But anyway, long story short,
we have them too. Under our foot, the sole of our feet has a chakra on each foot. The palm of our hands have a chakra in each chakra.
So and what they call them on the cat is, or the dog, is the bud chakra. And so it showed all of that. And I think 7 out of 9 or 6 out of 9 chakras of his were out of whack. And his blood count, this, that, a lot of things were going. He was listless. I had to call him a couple of times to see if he was still breathing, and sent it to Dr. Botanica. And he's reading this, these things, and he's seeing nutritional issues and various things. And then, bling, it hits me. What would have made him become sick like that quick? We had put Turo ant killer in a little container and around, because ants had invaded the kitchen, and we had them around the island. But one of them got kicked and the liquid came out. So intuitively, I knew cat must have licked that, thinking it was right, and he was poisoned. I sent him, scans and did some different things. Ordered some things on Amazon. It came in 4 hours. Force fed him, did some stuff, and couldn't find the card that I was going to take him to the emergency room and send him scan frequencies. And this morning scanned him again. All of his stuff had changed. All his numbers, everything changed. Everything that was, all of his chakras are in balance except for his heart. Heart chakra still, he's, and it probably is always out of balance because he's kind of like that. But today he got up and ate after 4 days, and he kind of came back to himself. But it wasn't until I realized what had happened to him. And so, and I also sent his scans to Dr. B, so he could look at them and he could see that something was going on. But we have determined that he has a mineral deficiency, like a lot of us do. So, but I'm just saying, that type of approach to stuff, and when you know that stuff, you can be such helpful to yourself, to your family, and to your friends. You don't make yourself a victim to allopathic pharmaceutical, drugs that are going to have all kinds of side effects and all kinds of, side effects. So I'm happy for the natural approach. And then you told me something today about the importance of magnesium.
Yeah, because you can't use any of the trace minerals required for bodily functions without magnesium. It's the great synthesizer. And the same with vitamin C. For all of the vitamins, it's the great synthesizer. And one of the old books I read went into the medical studies on nutrition and the different vitamins and how they affect certain conditions. And you would be surprised what they call macro dosing. Massive doses of vitamin C cure so much stuff, but they don't want people to know about it because it's a facilitator for all of the rest of the vitamins. And magnesium is the facilitator for the trace minerals. And
have you ever heard about glutathione?
Yeah.
And it's important. Yeah. See, I put glutathione in my mouth, and in nano, these are like down to a nanoparticle, because when it gets into your gut, everything can get burned out, but it works in the mouth. So because I swish it in my mouth for 30 seconds to a minute, it absorbs the nanoparticles in the jaw and gets through the body that way and bypasses the stomach acids. And but these are things that we don't study. We rather have somebody else give us all of these poison things. And we need to do more. Yeah. But I'm glad that, we see all of these phases of Rod.
You remember when you had me talk to him? What the first thing he asked me about?
Dr. B?
Mm-hmm.
And you, whatever it was, I knew you knew. I realized you knew.
It was about the PQQ.
I'm on PS, me on PQQ.
Right. So the PQQ is for the mitochondrial. It's the fuel for mitochondrial in the physical world. But most of the mitochondrial, when it's operating in its optimum function, it's spiritual. It's the spirit energy that charges and powers the cell at its micro levels. So when he asked me about it and I started telling him that it was the fuel for mitochondria, he said, man, you know how many naturopaths I asked about that don't know what that is? You know what it is?
Yeah, you
Right.
did. Yeah, you did. I didn't remember which thing it was, but I knew whatever it was, you knew it right off the bat. And so, but yeah, so I just try to do the things that are natural and to keep myself, going. I'm sitting here, I'm sweating. I'm sure it's like 90 degrees still here. We've been on here for just about 3 hours. Listen, we have an event coming up. I wish, I know you can't, but I wish you could be here. But we have an event coming up in August, and we are hoping that all that can, because last year we did 2 of these things called Up Close and Personal, and this year we're only going to do one, but it's a whole weekend, 3 days. So we're hoping that we can get at least 85 to a max about 100 folks to come out and hang out with Grand Sheik and myself and others, and who knows.
That'd be a great pleasure if I'm able to make it, but I don't know what Big Mama gonna have me doing next.
You will ask Big Mama, because we'll bring you here. I won't even announce it. It would be a secret. If you do show up, it would be. I wouldn't even put it on the.
It would be on short notice anyway, because right now I can't make plans that far in advance until I can read what's going on. I have to know where I need to be at.
But now that I know that you were close here because you've been to Seaford, that's what I call it Lower Delaware. But you know what I'm talking about. If
I used to work for Townsend Chicken.
I was going to say, was it chicken? Brown, I was going to ask you.
If you down there in Seaford, ain't really much to do but work in a chicken factory
and stuff like that. What came to mind is like, did he work in a chicken factory down there? But,
yeah, it had me deboning breasts.
I've heard stories. People were like, "Oh, they grow the chickens and they don't have all their body parts. They have chickens being born." They put stories out like that.
They do have genetically modified chickens that don't have beaks and feathers, but that's not what's being delivered from Townsend Chicken, the one that I was working at. I watched the whole process from them bringing them in on trucks to the factories. You drive down through Delaware, you can see all of the pole barns. They call them chicken farms.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see them in there. Those chickens, they grew too many in the close proximity, but they not necessarily genetically modified like the ones they use in fast food. Them the ones with no feathers and no beaks.
Yes, right? That's deep. That's not so.
Yeah. So like you could go on YouTube and put in clipping chicken beaks, and you'll see them clipping their beaks off when they babies. It ain't no secret.
Wow.
Well, KFC don't blatantly call themselves Kentucky Fried Chicken no more. They just call themselves KFC. It's a lawsuit I read when I was locked up. Somebody sued them and said that they shouldn't be legally allowed to call they genetically modified organisms chicken, and the courts agreed with them and told them that they couldn't call themselves Kentucky Fried Chicken no more. So they changed the moniker to KFC.
Wow. Well, that's deep, y'all. If you're still eating that stuff, that's deep. Wow. Well. Listen, this has been absolutely a wonderful exchange, and I'm sure aside from the interruptions with the the sound and the picture kind of sticking, this has been good. And I mean, I think we have a totally different perspective. Now we can look at you, the man behind the mission, behind the activism. You know what I mean? Because I think a lot of times people think that they don't know. When you're attacking people and you don't know who they are, you don't know where they've been, you don't know what it took for them to get to and do what it is they're doing, and then you're doing a great disservice. And sometimes folk attack people that could become one of their biggest allies, but you need to figure out who they are. And like same thing with you and Grand Sheik. You all don't 100% agree with each other on anything. But the one thing I like that both of you say, we agree on the things we agree on. We find commonality in the things that we do agree on, and that's where we ought to be, I believe, as a people. Find our common ground and let's stand on that together instead of fighting each other from different sides of the road.
Right. Well, I knew I had to learn civics from a reliable source. In the different people that was teaching, I didn't find a better source of civics understanding than Taj. It don't matter what else he teach after that. I know civics from listening to Taj.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what is the purpose of knowing civics? You need to know what's being done, what you need to be doing to run government, how to get how to read the law so you'll know the imposters is using legalese to trap our people. We didn't know all this stuff 100 years ago this concisely. When Noble Ali said get a good Moorish education, he didn't only mean civics. He meant historically, linguistically, learn the etymology of the words that they're using, and it's going to paint a different picture, right? So if he said he going to lead these people in power till we learn how to run the government, somebody has to sit and learn government from A to Z. One of my frustrations, and this had nothing to do with, it's not a negative knock on Taj, is that he's forced by the questions he's asked to keep saying the same thing redundantly. The irony in that is, by him saying it redundantly, I don't have to be there at the beginning. I can come in where he at and see him saying the same things over and over and say, okay, well, they're not asking the follow-up to get him out of this loop, right? So in our reading the Emerald Tablets, Thoth say everything is cycles within cycles. Learn how to interrupt the cycles. That means learn how to break that pattern of redundancy. The only way I can do that is I have to ask Taj questions that none of the prior persons that was doing their investigations in the civics have been asking him. The only question I needed to ask him is, did he know when the contract ended? Because if he don't know when the contract ended, he don't know when to stop teaching physics, so he can't never retire. He can't never go off into the sunset with his wife and have babies and all that stuff because he got to keep teaching this stuff redundantly. I want him to have the opportunity, if he chooses to take a 40-day vacation because he felt like, because I understand civics enough to know that as pretender to the throne, having the birthright and the blood right, there's a process. By application of this process, I enact universal law. In enacting universal law, it secures the position of all similarly situated people around the world because this is universal law that's enforced from the level of the Galactic Council. It trickles down into the 3D as an overthrow of the current system that's belligerent to the organic people on the land who has an obligation to Big Mama, Mother Nature, to clean the land up at the close of the age, to restore the waters and the airwaves back to its pristine purity. And that's not going to take no week. That's not a 2-week cleanup job. We're talking about a job that can take us a couple hundred years, but we have to start on it. But we can't start on it until one of us learns civics well enough so that we can execute the galactic law overriding the corporate jurisdictions of contract law.
Right.
And from the position of galactic law, when you discover an injustice, you report it to the people to determine if they want to remain in the injustice or if they want the justice to prevail over the injustice. So this is why we always have to put it in the public domain, and the paperwork becomes irrelevant. This oral tradition preceding the paperwork tradition. And Noble Ali say no for a surety you are what your forefathers were without a doubt or a contradiction. Elijah Muhammad say, go back to what your forefathers done. We was an oral tradition, so that means putting it in the public domain is how we made our presence felt among the people. Then when we discover any anomaly that negatively affects every clan, then we have the obligation to inform as many clans who's willing to listen to the problem that comes with a solution. The solution that I'm telling the people right now is that we have to destroy this old system so that our system can be restored. When our system of matriarchy is restored, cleaning off parts of the land to take care of and reclaim. If the land got to be cleansed, we got to have purity rituals held on the land from the blood spilling and the bloodletting rituals they done all over the land. All of these murders and slaughters that they've done over the years have a negative residual energy that affects us. All of the people don't have to be aware, but the ones who understand it is obligated to explain it to the ones nearest to them in terms they can understand of what's taking place on the land. So my job by default became the person that's running through the communities, telling all of the tribes similarly situated, which happens to be all 500 in North America and some change, and they all have to agree to overthrow the old system, and then the old system goes away. So the question you asked me earlier about Malachi, he's in continuity of government. He has to be there because he has one of the largest tribes on the land, right? Farrakhan has to be there. They can't not be there. If the government is going to revert back to us, our leadership has to be there, which includes those political prisoners that we mentioned earlier, all have to be there. And this is all taking place in real time. It's just that the people are stuck on this narrative of the old system trying to hold on to its last few sips of power. So now their cup is empty. I'm about to slap that motherfucker off the table because I want my sisters to get their shit back. Mama said, don't let nobody take nothing from my brothers and sisters. And they got first right to the rights to the earth. So if we going to fix the problem, you put everything where it properly go, it'll run the way it's supposed to run, and you don't got to micromanage everything.
Right.
You ain't got to worry about it. Just put the most qualified person to lead the position in the current conditions. I might not be qualified to lead this charge in 10 years because my qualifications might have exhausted themselves by doing certain work. But somebody else gonna come along behind me and say, this is how we take what you was doing to the next level. Right? So we taking it to the next level, and the highest level we can take it is to the grand matriarch in order to restore balance to the land. And we all know who
and
that
I
is.
like what you said. I like what you're saying, Rob, because you're not saying that you are the end, the be all and the end all. But for this season, you are doing the work that you've been assigned. For me, for this season, I'm doing the work that I'm assigned. And just like you said about Grand Sheik, we get to a place where we need to be able to get to a place where, as we become elders, that we can relax from that, because there are a younger a crew coming in that should be preparing themselves to take a leadership role and to let the elders be revered and let the younger then to me do the heavy lifting. I'm hoping that somebody will come and take over. I do so much when it comes to the House of Reawakening Minds from the standpoint of the day-to-day is me. It's the calls, it's the creating this, it's the can do it. I mean, Grand Sheik and I basically work together, but he does what he does when he comes here and talks, and he does work if work needs to be done in the building. But when it comes to the mechanics of things, this is no huge organization, but it's a huge responsibility to a very broad spectrum of people. So it has to be done with, some level of professionalism and precision, even though we have these, technical things. These are things that we got to, get beyond, but we take seriously the work. We take seriously the fact that we've been put in this position for this time to be a connector you know, knowing that somebody else is going to come along and pick up the baton at some point, and they need, you know, and it needs to be a smooth transition. That's what we need to be doing,
Yeah.
preparing those to come up and take the baton.
So when people will be asking me, how can I not promote myself as higher based on my knowledge? I learned from Chancellor Williams that he gonna always be a greater teacher than me because he taught me. So the greater I become, the greater that make him. I taught from Taj, right? So the greater I become in the application of civics is a testimony of the greatness of Taj. I
Absolutely.
can't never overshadow them. I'm standing on the shoulders of giants who stood on the shoulders of giants. I'm just a midget that could see the furthest. That's how I see it. So
Yeah.
all of them that did the work before me laid the foundation for my work to be able to be functional and usable. Because I'm not usable if I don't have something to use. And anything that don't have something to use and that's not usable is open to be misused. And that's why they don't like to conjure me up.
Mm. Well, I'm glad they did. I'm glad they did. We're glad they did. Many of us are. You know, like I said, love you or hate you, you know, it doesn't matter. You came here to do a job, and you're doing it. And whether you know, whether you know, I have folks, whether you smoke a cigarette or whatever else you smoke, you know, whatever, or you curse or say words that are whatever they feel like it might be cuss. You're not cursing, cuss words. Um, that's your mannerism.
And that's part of rebellion.
Okay.
Because like I said, being politically correct and the politics are not correct is being insane. So to use the profanity, to be cussing, is to be belligerent to the improper politics being imposed on our people. So any politician that I don't hear say motherfucker, I ain't trying to hear it. He can't be politically correct and be about what's right. It's incompatible in this system. Because the politics is not correct. Because
Right.
there's too many people suffering and struggling trying to get a better day from a sour lemon they don't have enough sugar to make lemonade with. Because somebody stole their sugar that they had the first right to before they even seen it. So now they can't even make sugar out of the lemon. I mean, lemonade out of the lemons. So now they just got some squeezed lemon water.
Right. And there's some things, you know, even I'm sure you can, you, I know, you know, like there's things I know, Grand Chic, we know that we are not at liberty to speak freely, you know, in these venues like this. And that's another reason, and that's a good segue. That's another reason why up close and personal is, we'll call up close and personal, because that's when we get to, you know, no cameras. And, you know, I'm sure there are folks that sneak and put their little recorder on to hear things, but no cameras. And we're able to speak freely on the things that need to be conveyed, so that, you know, we use the oral tradition again and start, once you learn something, if it resonates with you, then you take it, and when you get home, you share it, and let somebody else, so we can pass that knowledge on. So for those of you who want to come and see myself, Grand Chic, Brother Dave, Mother Kai, Dr. Botanica, you know, other folks, and there are other folks, 3 days, 3 whole days of coming together. The third day is a holistic wellness fair, and we're going to be raffling like $4,000 worth of wonderful merchandise. The biggest raffle prize is a $2,000 2,000 note, whatever, BioCrystal Sleep M queen size mattress topper, which is amazing, and some other Sleep M products and other, you know, we have a bunch of stuff, but that's the biggest of it. Somebody's going to win it, whether they're here or not. That's the wonderful thing. We will actually, if you can't come, we just have straight up 25 note donations for our fundraiser raffle ticket, and you get a chance to win. And if you in California, we'll ship it to you. We'll still ship you the queen size mattress topper if you're not here. or if you went and you're here and you came on a plane, we'll still ship it. You know what I mean? So we want you to come out and be with us on that weekend. We're going to have a wonderful time. Some
What's the
holistic.
dates again, Dr.
August 26th, 27th, 28th.
Okay.
26,
7 days
27.
after my father's birthday. My father's birthday the 21st.
Ah, okay.
So it's 7 days to the day after my father's birthday.
21st.
But this is the thing that we need to be looking for coming up, because it's
Wilmington, Delaware. Somebody asked what part of Delaware. Wilmington, Delaware. I'm gonna put the thing up. Yeah. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Ron.
So while you do that, put the address and stuff up for the people.
Oh, you talk and I'll just put this up and they can just see the banner.
So what we need to be looking for to transpire, because we on the verge of a total economic collapse in what we call the Americas. The economy is on its like final leg. Also, we need to be looking for public exposure of the election fraud being revealed with hardcore, irrefutable evidence. That all got to come out. All of that's going to lead up to the restoration of the matriarchy and the reorganizing of the matriarchs across the land in order to properly administer government. Because we know how to do this now. So Noble Drew Ali did his job. He gave Taj his mission. He done his job. C. Freeman Hill done his job metaphysically. Charles Mosley Bay gave us this clock of destiny to look at. So they all doing a part. So one of us from the land got to tie all of the pieces together across the red and the blue in order to get to Big Mama house on the black and gold, which is the coals for the furnace that we used to use to burn in her living room, and the gold, which we use to do trade among the tribes. So we getting back to the wealth of the land, which is the substance, and not the debt of the land, which is the slave system, right? So these things are imminent. They coming. I don't know what's going to be the straw or the grand exposure of it, but you have to see it coming, because all of the indicators is saying that it can happen any day. Then Trump gave a whole lecture on the election steal the night that I left to go perform my functions for Big Mama, which was oddly timed enough to get my attention. And he was talking about there is no way that the American people are going to continuously be subjugated by these frauds. So that's where we at with it. That's what's coming.
Okay. Well, yeah, I'm not. You're still there. I got one. The banner that's running now is kind of like big. It's showing my thing. It's showing that state stuff that I was showing the NUMMI, the nanostatic glutathione and the stuff that I spray on my face. That's making me look a little bit younger for 67.
You know what the irony of this picture is? It's got a lot of simple. You know, I read every picture like a tarot card.
Okay. So
and
what you said?
The before no makeup picture. Right. I can't see the full hand symbols, but it looked like your hands are crossed.
I think it's kind of up to my throat.
No. That's your left hand. That's your hand on your breast.
Right.
And then, so this is the secrets out in the open. That's the same as with Noble Drew Ali telling us he put the secrets in the public domain. And then the 40 days later, have you smiling in the gold, and black and gold is Big Mama house. But the background is blue. That means the blue house. So you was already preloaded to give the report at the right time so the people can know it. And NUMMI, I got to find out about that. So I'm going to be looking into that, because the NUMMI is a homonym for the new me. And you looking at, so the old me versus the new me. That's the transformation message from Big Mama. The old earth becomes the new earth.
Absolutely. Well, let me take that off. Well, oops. I'm like I said, I have to figure out all the things I'm doing, But yeah, so it's just wonderful, to be unmade. I used to I would not dream of coming on camera without some makeup to cover little spots and some eyeshadow and some mascara and lipstick and cheek. I was like, nah. I'm learning to love the skin I'm in, and it's helping me, clear it up and you know be happy with who I am. You know what I mean? This is me.
Yeah,
This
that's
is
what
me.
facilitates the glow too.
Yes. And so you guys can have the same thing. Of course, in between that and chokeberry and sleep am and all of that stuff, we got a little bit of we got mattresses with 16 crystals and gold and silver in them that people can sleep on and get well. Chokeberry that they can take, nanos, particles they can put in there. I mean, every time I find something that is holistic and works for me, it's got to work for me first. I can't just give it to you and I don't know whether it works for me. At least I can say it works for me, because if it doesn't work for me, then it 9 times out of 10 it may not work for you either. So we try to bring that stuff to you. But anyway, it has been real awesome, amazing, and I'm sure that those who there were questions that folks. I do apologize, y'all. We wanted this to be mainly about talking about our brother Rod and his background, and I know y'all have a lot of questions, and we'll get you back. We'll get I have another show I call, and I haven't done it for over a year, brother Rod, called Open Circle Gathering. And that open circle gathering is a place, and I may even just do it on Zoom this time, maybe so that folks can literally come on and ask questions and so forth. So we can do like 100 people on it. But open circle gathering is to talk about so-called spiritual stuff and so-called freedom from dogma and things. And I know you said if that's what they want, if that's fine. But if you're trying to get out of the matrix, that's where the open circle gathering comes in, so folks can be free to talk about their journey. And there's other, when you were talking about what you saw, and I saw in the chat where other folks were saying, no, people didn't believe me when I had XYZ experience. We want folks to be comfortable in whatever experience they have. That's one of the goals of House of Reawakening Minds. It's dedicated to the practice of spirituality, what we call an enlightened community that's dedicated to honor the myriad of sacred pathways to the universal creator. We know that there's not one road. We know that there's many roads, and we'll meet up, at the place that we're supposed to, but you need to be free to be able to exercise your spiritual self, or your, whatever you want to call it, your pathway, and not be persecuted for it because it's not the way the person next to you is doing it.
Yeah. And the part is, you gotta always remember, when you judging somebody else, the same standard apply to self.
Right.
Most people don't want to hold themselves accountable for what they condemn other people for. And when you see people fall, and they might not be did the dirt they're accused of, everybody not guilty.
Right.
It's an orchestrated plan to keep us from reclaiming the land and evicting the imposters is one.
Right.
And the second thing is, I'm not part of the spiritual community or the conscious community, because the people in the spiritual community are spiritually dead, and the people in the conscious community is diet woke. I'm part of the tribal community of families that's coming together as a family confederacy across the land that just want to live in peace and harmony and happily
The
ever
way they
after.
want to, right?
Right. Without the restrictions of artificial legal fiction imposing a heartless regime on the people. That's
Yeah.
all. I'm not trying to do no, I'm not trying to be greedy and consume the world for myself. What I'm going to do with all of it? I can't do nothing but give it to the people anyway.
After a while, stuff becomes just is stuff. And and I'm gonna say this, and I know we're gonna go. But one of the things I realized, there was a scripture that says, or if it's not a scripture, at least a quote, folks will say, the Lord giveth and the Lord taketh. But when you think in terms of who the Lord is, I think now in terms of the system that has plied us with so many things that were unnatural to our natural wants and desires and environment. And now that they've given us all these things, technology and fancy this and that and the other, now they're trying to snatch it away from us. Give and take it. But if we had stayed in our natural, habitat, whatever, this stuff would have never affected us, because we wouldn't have gotten, just like a child. If you never give a child candy, they'll never even desire it because they've never had it. But once you say, oh, well, everybody else has got Halloween candy, you can't go trick-or-treating, but here's a bag of candy. Next thing you know, now you've addicted your child to one of the worst things that's around, sugar. And you know what I'm saying? They would have never had it had you not.
Sugar not as bad for you as people believe.
Well, it's not good, but it's not good.
It's not the sugar. It's the bleaching agent and the sugar and the flour.
Well, versus natural. Now you're right. There's not the sugar, the granule, the refined process, the way they bleach it. So no, you're right. It's not good at all. Not good at all.
They deliberately use toxins to cause side effects by the consumption of those mass-produced products. They know the bleaching agent in the sugar and the flour is toxic to the human.
Well, so the
question is, why do they keep putting it in there?
Right, not because they're trying to do what it is they're doing. But cane sugar, and another thing that, even though it sounds like it's not, like it may be some chemical, it's not. Xylitol is a real good substitute. It's a sweetener that's not aspartame or anything like that. It's a natural sweetener that will do the same thing and not give you the issue that you would get by consuming sugar. So definitely, please, if you drink, using stuff like the pink packets and stuff like that, stop.
You might as well eat sugar if you use them pink packets.
Well, you might as well eat poison.
That's what you're doing. You eat rat poison.
Rat poison. Yes, right.
Saccharin in the sweet and low. Saccharin.
Yeah, I was trying not to give their name out. I'm just saying pink packets and stuff. But yeah, you're really doing yourself a disservice. But hey, listen, thank you. Love you. You my brother from another mother. Both our mamas is looking at us from wherever they are and saying, way to go. Look, that's my son. My mom's going, that's my baby. That's my only baby. So anyway, this has been really wonderful, eye-opening, enlightening, and all of that stuff. So I appreciate you. I really do. I really appreciate you. I appreciate your candor and your honesty, and really, sharing, your story, your journey. It's not a story, your journey with us. And I hope for those, some of those, that this has put a totally different light and a perspective on who you are, and that they will stop looking at you, look beyond that, and listen to you and what your assignment is. Are you fulfilling your assignment? And the last thing is, I've been getting calls from a few folks about brothers called me last week. They were trying to get in touch with you about some training they must have heard on one of your videos for the sisters. And then I got a call about whether or not the sisters didn't what they did on July 4th. I was like, I don't know. I said, well, I don't do anything. I'm retired, so I didn't do anything different because I don't go punch a clock anywhere. So I didn't know. But they wanted to know about some training for the matriarchy that might have been mentioned on one of your other videos, and I couldn't, give them.
It's several training topics that I mentioned. One of them was the training of the doulas at the doula center that's going to open up after we reclaim the land. The other one is the Rites of Passage program for the youth. That training has to be done to revamp the educational or the miseducation system into a proper education system. And the other training is what's being done by the women at the MGT GCC, which is General Civilization Courses, which teaches the women how to be functional in the home and to understand a lot of the mechanics of running a family and being the woman of the house that wasn't being taught before in this type of setting until the Nation of Islam was set up. after the fall. They was doing it in the Moorish Women's Consulate, and they was doing it in the
Yeah, because I
UN.
have a book. I have a
Right,
book, a red book
right.
that
And they
yeah.
got they were doing it also in the UNIA nurse brigade under Garvey, and all of those programs were stumped out by the government, like the breakfast programs of the Black Panthers and the educational programs of the Peace Stones, the community organization and efforts of the growth and development, and the vice lords. All of them was squashed out by the government, and then they villainized the people that put those programs together to remove them from our community. So there's a whole lot of training, and it's also um, a lot of what we call $5 Indians on reservations have certain spiritual practices that they were to hold in secret until we reclaim the land, and now they have to give it all back.
So these classes are not actually going on yet, but these are things that need to happen. Is that what you're saying?
Well, the women should attend the beginners classes, the MGT, GCC, and they can start there now. They active, and some of the
What
it's a
about the
couple.
sisters that are not necessarily, they're not in the Nation of Islam? I mean,
You don't have to be in the nation to attend the beginners class. That's the first thing. The next thing is also there is a functional Moorish women's consulate in New York, and I think DC is where they was at, where they was headquartered at. But they know the old teachings of the Moorish women's consulate from the days of Noble Jew Ali, and they've also took steps to update it. Right. So there's women's groups. Like there's a sister in New York that does a goddess glow up, which teaches the women about harnessing their personal power and being a beacon of light wherever they go. So all of these is in all of these places can be found, but people got biases that they have to overcome to get the information. I had biases I had to overcome too.
right. Well, if you have any information that you could share with me offline, with like how I can get in touch and pull some of these things together. Let me see. Latanya said, "I'm okay." Here's okay. Wait a minute. This is something. I'm former MGT and can support this training for those who don't want to join the nation. Oh, okay. Yeah. This is my
So
sister.
so what you do with her is you get her information,
I have
and,
her information. I know who
and
she is.
you can funnel the women. They can contact you as a connector,
Okay.
and y'all can just start setting it up because she already knows what to do. She's already
Yeah, she was
trained.
high up in there. She was right high ranking in there. So yeah,
Mhm.
okay, I'll do that. Thank you, sister. I'll reach out to her. I know who she is.
All right.
All
Thank you,
right.
Dr. Z, for having me.
Thank you for coming on. As usual, this has been great. All right. We
Blessings
leaving.
to reawaken minds, to reawaken the minds. And it was a pleasure talking to the people.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Appreciate you. All right.
All right, Dr. G. I'll talk to you later.
All righty. Bye-bye. Okay, y'all. We are going out here. I think I had a couple of things that I did not play, and I'm going to do that for the few of you that hang on. If you give me a few minutes again, please, we do not that one, y'all. I should have been put that up. Please, we have tickets available for up close and personal, and we have rooms. I do have a block of rooms at two hotels. So if you want to come, we're very limited. We can only a fraction of you who are on here can actually come. So when we get our limit, the ticket link will no longer be active. And your ticket, let me just put that up again. I just want to go through here. Your the ticket, the $75 for the weekend includes the $25 raffle ticket for the for over $4,000 worth of giveaways that we have. And if you've been thinking that you wanted to try the Sleep M BioCrystal mattress, well, we have a BioCrystal mattress pad that is $2,000 in value that is going to be won by somebody. So if you would you get your ticket, it is actually $75. But if you cannot get a ticket and come here, then please, please, please at least get yourself a raffle ticket, because you don't have to be present to actually win. So that's a good thing. We're doing a fundraiser for House of Reawakening Minds. And with that, I want to thank you all for tuning in, and I'll go out with my little commercial and out.
G, inviting you to get your Chokeberry Plus today. It is that amazing berry, high in antioxidant, anti-inflammatory, antiviral properties. It supports and balances the blood pressure, the blood sugar, weight, and cholesterol. Yes, you can get a 2-month supply today by texting CB3L to 302-345-0500. That's CB3L to 302-345-0500. And get on the path to wellness today. You'll be glad you did.
Look, y'all, I didn't even get a chance to play the right thing for you to order because it kicked me out, but you all were still there. So Chokeberry, you want to get yourself some Chokeberry. Scientifically proven to boost your immune system, helps you as a strong antioxidant, antiviral, anti-inflammatory, blood sugar balance, blood pressure, and cholesterol balance support. And those of you who already take it know how fantastic it is. I know you do. So you want to make sure that you get some. And let me put this one other thing up here for you.
Dr. G here to introduce you to a product that I have fallen in love with called GN Rooted Botanical Hair Serum. If you have dryness of the scalp, dandruff, hair loss, graying, just needing your scalp moisturized and needing to have your hair grow, you want to try this product. It is completely natural, vegan, has great, even you can see the herbs in the product. You can see it. It's awesome. It is making my hair grow. A lot of hair growth. Haven't had my hair washed in over a month. Don't have the dryness. Don't have the dandruff or any of the things I normally have. Even the gray is starting to diminish, the little patches of gray. Get yourself some GN Rooted Botanical Hair Growth Serum by Sister Lisa Carr. I'm going to put the link down so you can get some. You're going to love it. Man, woman, boy, girl, try this product. I love it. I love it.
All right, that's it, y'all.
Dr. G. Really? Who's she?
Yeah, that's me.
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 Dr. G. Really? Who's she?
Yeah, that's me.